Good evening and welcome to the February 29th, 2024 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. It is 6:30 p.m. and we are meeting at the Lakeville Police Station. Is anyone else recording this meeting? Hearing none. We know that LakeCAM is recording and we have Parks with us. Would you like to open your meeting?
Yep, we're welcoming you to the Joint Parks Commission meeting, including with the CPC, and we will open our meeting at 7:31.
Six.
Oh, sorry. 6:31.
Sue, do you
Yes.
want me to take attendance for meeting minutes purposes, or
I-
are you good?
I wrote them down, so I'm
right.
good.
So we have a public hearing starting at 7, but we're gonna try to get through as much of this as possible beforehand. We have missing records from May 2nd of 2023, and Sue is gonna let us know what that's all about.
Right, so the May 2nd, 2023 meeting was held at the Council on Aging, and it was recorded on a hand recorder. LakeCAM did not record it, and for technical reasons, it wasn't recorded. Nothing was taken, no votes were recorded. We don't know who was in attendance, so Lillian told me just to write up something saying that there were difficulties with that meeting, so we don't have recorded minutes. But at that meeting, we did discuss these two documents. One was the application checklist that we were adding yes or no to. And we also, on the step 1 and step 2 applications, we put like a little box in the corner that said approved, not approved, and the date. So those were approved and voted on, but we don't know who made the motions, who voted for them, so we have to do it again just to make it official. So the two documents are in your packets. One is the general evaluation criteria, that it just adds yes or no to all those questions. And then the step 1 and step 2 applications, putting those two little boxes in for official use only. So we just need to vote on them again so that it's official.
Okay. And we also have in these extra information that was sent out this afternoon. She did write up something that we can post instead of the minutes that were missing. So,
Right.
so if somebody wants to make a motion for.
And I'll make a motion to accept the May 2nd, 2023 minute detail, I guess, and the two documents that were discussed and voted on.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
You're abstaining, Paula?
I wasn't here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So do we have any nays? So all in favor? And one abstain. All right. So moving on to item number 2, review possible vote on estimates for CPC project signs. Barbara Standish, she got us some information on the signs and she was good enough to print out some nice color copies for us. Barbara, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So there's 2 different size frames that we can get. And what I did was I just looked through the packet, the examples that were given at the last meeting, kind of picked out the best ones. I know we talked about, there was a couple of people that voiced their opinion. So I came up with 2 different designs. Either one or neither, it doesn't matter, it's just a starting point. And then the smaller one down the bottom, the rider would go at the bottom of the panel, the 6-inch panel across. I thought that would be a good thing to put down there.
So does anybody have a preference,
This
recommendation?
one is so simple. People are gonna drive by and see it or walk by and see it.
Which
You want
one?
something that doesn't take a lot of time for them to read.
How about this one? Pretty big.
There's a lot more information on that, but this is pretty simple. If you just want to show that that's where it's gonna be.
Anyone else? So,
It's just my opinion.
Yeah,
what do
I
you
like
think,
the
Paula?
colors,
Yeah.
the white.
I like the white.
And you like the white?
And black.
Now, what if it was white instead of yellow?
It'll stand out.
It's basically the amount of printing you have on there,
Okay.
so that's an issue.
So what do you think if this was the white wording?
Mm.
Is there other parts of this that you
Maybe
prefer?
it was white, I guess I'm not a fan of yellow.
I agree with Nancy. If you drive by and you see CPA, people might not know what that is, but this spells it right out what it is. Might stand out better if it was in white, but if you just look, you're driving by and you see CPA and you don't take the time to read what it says the next line down. But it might stand out better if it was white.
Yeah.
But I like this one
Shows
too.
better. Colors.
Crisp,
Yes.
crisp when you
What do you
look at the
think?
white one.
Okay.
John, any input?
I don't know if anybody can say it.
I like it with both, so I'm kind of,
Yeah,
I'll go with whatever. I like it both.
Yeah,
looks better in the white.
Yeah, I like it better than the white.
Okay. Well, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the sign with the white lettering?
You have to pick the size too, Barbara.
Yeah, we have to choose a size.
Oh,
I
okay.
say bigger, better.
I think the 36 by 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, 26 by
36 by 24.
The only thing I will say is going the larger size, you're really gonna have to put this in the ground because you have more, there's nothing that supports it in the back, it's just those two posts that go in there,
What's the next size down,
the
Barbara?
frames. Either 36 by 24 or 24 by 18.
Which would be,
This is a packet.
So
yeah.
how far do they go into the ground? If it's 45 inches long, is that total or?
So, no, so you have 24 and 6 is 30, so you have 25 inches to play with for the.
Oh, so
the
we would,
posts.
this would go all the way? or-
No, not all the way, but I'm just saying that
It's just
it's a
thinking
bigger area for, because it's not gonna have any wind slits in it. So it's a bigger area for the wind to absorb, to the sign to absorb the wind, so it's gonna rock back and forth. If you have 3 feet as if you have 2 feet, that's all.
So maybe we should even include when, putting them for the projects, some sort of like information about that too. If we go with the bigger
Well, we're
one.
gonna be putting them in there, up, I'm assuming, right? Or no?
I don't know. I don't know if it's, the committee or if we were gonna hand them to them. I guess it's up to the members committee.
Wouldn't the
So-
contractors put them in?
Well, so that's the thing. We wouldn't want to put it somewhere that's in the way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not rocket science, it's just, just tell them, if we go with the bigger one, just put it in the ground a little further.
Right, okay. But do we all agree, bigger sign?
We're only getting one? Are we getting a couple? Are we getting just one sign?
This is the movable ones, right?
Yes, this is the
Yeah,
temporary.
I think didn't you say you had a certain amount that you had to get?
No, the
No?
price break is for many more than what we would need at this point.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay. So that we're voting on just one.
I think we need
I-
more.
I'd get a few,
Yeah.
at
We may
least.
have
I
How
get
many?
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, I was
They
gonna say
may
4,
disappear.
at least
Okay.
4.
So you think 4 signs, the bigger size. And your Community Preservation Act dollars at work with the white lettering. Okay,
And the insignia. too.
right, yep. So does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we pick this sign, I don't know if it's 1, 2, or 3, and it be 36 by 24, and we buy at least 4 with white lettering on green.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All in favor?
I,
Okay. All right.
Before we move on, I know you've done a ton of work on our memorandums of understanding and agreements. And maybe one more thing to add would be requiring whoever is the grant recipient to install a sign, spell it out,
Right.
and spell out that they return the signs when the
That's-
project is completed.
That's a good idea.
That might be something to include
Right.
in both those.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I wanna make it any more complicated
Well,
for you with
no,
other
I mean, at
agreements.
this point, that's, it's better to do it now, I'd say.
Just to spell it out.
Yeah, that's a good idea, John.
Grant contractor should do it too. Sign.
All right, so for item number 3, we have the budget report for February. Nancy, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I sat down with Christina, I think at the last meeting, I had said we were gonna try to make it easier to understand. So Christina and I sat down and we came up with a different kind of a chart, which ended up when I had a meeting with Todd, it seemed more complicated than what we had. So what we came up with is that Todd has added some explanations to what he did. Like you can see on the top line that for CPA surcharge revenue, that 1,202, that was what came in late last year. So that won't change. See, it says 100% at the end because that was added on from last year. So then, the next line down, the 225 is what was anticipated we were gonna take in, and that added to, you have to estimate going forward, so we estimated we'd take in 225, we estimated that 20,000 would be our state match, and we estimated that 500 would be interest earnings. So where it says year expended at the top, so far, we've taken in 173, 631. So far, penalties and interest on the surcharge, probably from last year, is 956. Our state match was 46,812, and the earnings on investments aren't added in until June 30th. So at this point, we've collected so far 89.9% of what was estimated at town meeting that we would take in for this year. So we're doing pretty good, and I would think by when the March numbers come in, we'll get even higher from what came in for February taxes, and then we still have another whole tax bill, so we're getting there. But I think by him adding in those little things, before it just said P and I, and it's like, well, what's P and I? So, I think it makes it a little more understandable.
But now, so this still doesn't show what's left over from last year, right?
Well, we had talked about that, I thought at the last meeting, I think there's 159,000 left over from last year.
So,
Undesignated funds, I take it back, 152, undesignated fund balance from last year.
where's that? Undesignated. Where does it say the undesignated?
It's not on the budget report, but we can add it on.
Okay.
Actually, I talked about adding on another line onto what we already get for, or another part on the bottom, or another part maybe on the back. That would show the undesignated fund balance, which is 152, and then the percentage, like, it's about 46,000, I believe, and change from like the 10% for housing for the 2 years that we haven't spent. The housing last
Yeah.
year
See, that
was 22 and this year's 24.
That'd be good
So,
to see.
that's what I'm, one step at a time, but I think that if that's what everybody wants to see,
Yeah,
that we'll do that on. I was happy to get this far this time.
yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. if we can get a running total, I don't know is it a matter of was it too hard to put it into Excel? Does somebody else want to take a crack at putting it?
No, it's
it
not
into
too
Excel,
hard, I
or-
just didn't really get a clear message that you wanted that on there all the time or not. So if that's a running total, like, there'd be nothing from last year's 10% for, recreation or historic, but there would be the 22,106 that was left from
Housing.
housing.
Yeah.
And this year would be 24,550.
Yeah, so I feel like it would be good to see those totals
Okay.
too, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
So-
see more
Goes
totals.
back into the general fund.
All right,
It doesn't go into.
any other questions, comments on this item? All right, thank you, Nancy. And we've got a little more time. I don't want to get into the grant agreement or memorandum right now. We do have some minutes from February 1st, as well as some revised ones from January 10th. Did everyone have a chance to read over the minutes?
Going down to minutes now?
Yeah.
Do they look good? Anybody want to make a motion to accept them?
I move that the, minutes be accepted as, presented.
And just specify which date.
Which one we talking about?
So
first?
I think the February 1st.
February 1st, minutes. I move that the February 1st, 2024, minutes be accepted as submitted.
I second.
All right, and do we have, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the January 10th.
18th, actually.
Oh, sorry, 18th.
Yes, 18th. Yeah, so these minutes were the ones that were also on a recorder, and, the person that had transcribed them before had left a lot of the, motions and votes blank. She didn't know who it was that was speaking. So I listened to it like a bazillion times and figured out who it was. So that's what was edited on these. We're just adding who made the motion and seconded it and how the votes were taken. So that's the only thing that changed on these.
Thank you, Sue. All right, do we have a motion to accept those?
Again, I'll move that we accept the, revised January 18th, 2023. Is it 2023?
Yeah, 23.
Yes, yep.
Minutes as, submitted.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, one abstain. All right. So new business, we do need a 2025 CPA budget for town meeting. Nancy, is that something you want to,
Yeah,
Get a-
Todd's already offered to work on that, and it's
Okay.
just estimated, and I have a feeling that it's probably gonna be, like the 245, that estimate will probably still stand.
Okay.
But as for the match, I know that the state
Right.
budget's like $1 billion off or whatever, so we need to be conservative on what we're gonna anticipate we get for state match.
okay. All right, so, do you think you can have that ready with Todd for next meeting?
Sure.
I'm hoping, we can schedule the next meeting for March 21st.
Okay,
'cause we need
I was gonna
something-
say, the next meeting that I had on here was April 4th.
Yeah, so we
You
need,
wanna do another one before then?
I think so, just, cause that's pushing it really close to when the warrant closes.
All right, yeah,
so-
no, Todd has already offered
Okay.
to do that, so.
So, yep, so
There was a question about administrative.
the 5%?
Yeah, the 5%, Middleborough doesn't do that. 5% was like $12,000 something, and I mean, we don't spend that.
Well, if
I
we don't
mean,
spend it, it just goes right back
It goes
in.
back in, but
Yeah.
I think Middleborough does a lesser number.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
just-
say, could we just do a lesser percentage?
Yeah.
Like 3% or something?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
keep
what
going.
I'm asking before I go meet with Todd. We wanna leave it at 5%?
It's up to the committee. What do you think? 3%? Yeah, 3%? Yeah, go for 3% instead of 5? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Do we have to take a motion on that or no?
No, cause I
No?
mean, this is
Okay.
just gonna be, for next agenda.
Okay.
So, as long as, you know, they know that that's what they're gonna bring. Solicit input from respective committee boards, commissions. So, right, you know, tonight we're gonna, get input from residents. We also have to get input from boards, committees, commissions, town departments. I could send out an email, or if you guys just wanna go back to all your respective committees, boards, et cetera, put it on the agenda, get some discussion, what works for you guys? For input, do you wanna bring it
Input?
back to?
Onto the plan, you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, so just to see, you know, what they wanna see done with the funds, any recommendations, so.
When do you want this done by?
Well, obviously, everybody meets at different times, so, you know,
The
just
April meeting?
as soon as possible.
Because the historical commission doesn't meet again until the end of March.
Okay, so the April, okay, we can put that on for April then.
I don't know if anybody else meets last week. We meet the
Yeah,
last
mine's
Thursday.
like,
What exactly do you want?
Just look at the plan?
Yeah, just any input for the plan for, you know, how Parks wants to see the money spent, so.
Like if they have like priority recreational projects or something that they,
Yeah, yep,
a list of something like that.
yeah. And just to make sure that the plan that we have, what we've drafted, is still in line with those goals.
That should go on our individual agendas for discussion
Mm.
and voting.
And then we'll have to draft some CPP revisions, community preservation plan, so we can start working on that. And if you want to bring, you know, a draft to your committees and then bring back edits, that'll probably help move that along. So. All right, so everybody feels comfortable doing that on their own, and I guess I'll send out an email looking for input to the town departments. Under old business, I put Wildlands Trust, Crystalini property update. So I had reached out to Scott, because I know he was supposed to join us and he never did. So I was just trying to find out if he was gonna still meet with us, and, it sounds like the town planner had made it sound like it wasn't moving forward. So I reached out to the select board chair as well as the town administrator, and just to see, you know, how it was left, and because I don't believe they've had a public meeting about that. And I know the step 2 has to go through conservation, and I don't think that's been done either. So my thought was that, you know, does the committee want to send memos to both of these? Well, you know, requesting that we get either input or maybe a joint meeting to kind of flush it out and see where it stands at this point, because it seems like there's more questions than answers. So,
Yeah, I had talked to Scott too,
Yeah.
and I didn't wanna see Wildlands Trust going to do all that work if there's no interest on behalf, and I've asked that question too. I know Mark did, and so did I, to ask the selectmen if they were interested, because if they are the people that have to, you know, the selectmen are the ones that put it on town meeting, if it
right.
was to be funded, and if they're not going to, I don't know how, our committee's never talked about having to go by petition. And is that even something that we should be you know, is that something we shouldn't be doing a
No.
petition? It's whoever should, so
Yeah.
And Scott had said that that was kinda, he didn't wanna get involved in that
Mm.
kind of a situation, so
Yeah.
I think we need to, even our own board, we hadn't really talked about, I
Well,
mean, we
we-
said, yes, it's,
yeah, to the
something we
step
can use
one.
the money for.
Yeah. So we were just waiting for that step two, but we never got it.
Right.
And I think it would be good to, so there is a covenant on it, but I don't know if there's been any advice from town council on that covenant and whether or not it's in perpetuity or if it has to be renewed or if any action needs to be taken. So I do think it's a lot to flesh out. I'd like to send a memo to Concom and Select Board asking to get it on their agenda and or possibly a joint meeting so that we can meet with them and flesh it out. Mr. Gregory? It-
There's a Crystal Navy property.
Yeah.
Well, where is that property? and what's
Could
the-
you just come up and state your name for the record, please?
Hi, John Gregory, Bartelli Road. My question is, what is the property you're talking about?
So it's located, it's called One Elliott Way. It's alongside
It's off of Highland Road.
Highland Road.
It's right next to 140. The property runs along 140 highway.
And back to,
For the
um,
bridge.
Yep, right before the bridge.
Just before
right,
the-
yes, yeah.
So 1 Elliott Way is the street address?
Yep.
Yes, that's for the house, but so this would be the property behind it, and it kind of abuts back up to,
Stonewall Drive, I think it's called. I might have that wrong, but it abuts,
one of
The
the,
Biggers property, it butts
Yep.
the Biggers property that
yep.
is under conservation.
It's Old Stonewall Road.
Thank
There's
you.
a bog.
Yes.
Is it the bog that you're talking about?
Yep, it's the bog. There's like 30 acres that he was looking to sell.
Was the town interested in buying this?
so that's what I don't know, because I don't believe the select board discussed it during a public meeting.
So
I
they
haven't
never
seen it.
shared any interest in it?
So I think there was, I think, because it was chapter 61 property, I think they did reach out and say that, the town wasn't interested in buying it. But now, if it's coming to us, as a CPA project, I don't believe they've considered it as a CPA project.
The town hasn't.
Correct. So,
How big is the parcel?
Total 40
40
acres,
acres.
but he wanted to break off the house and a cell tower and sell 30 acres. The house would sit on 10.
Okay.
yes, Amy was present for a site walk, so she's familiar with it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, I just have a question. It seems to me on a project like this, shouldn't there be an advocate that's pushing this, not us? That's
Well-
taking all these steps?
So I think,
I mean, if someone's coming to us for funding, it seems to be beyond them to
right,
push this, be the advocate for the grant.
Right.
Not us. We don't even know, I don't even know very little about this.
right. Well, so we had the step one, but which was approved. So my question, I thought that we were waiting on a step two. So I was just reaching out to find out, where's the step two stand? And that's where he came back and said, well, the town planner had said X, Y, and Z. And he was asking me questions that I don't have the answer to. So because of that, I figured let's try to resolve this and find out where it stands, because it should, so the coalition did give us advice that said that a step two project, when it's a land open space acquisition, it should come from Concom. So that's why, if they haven't even gone through Concom, I was confused why they were being told, why there were so many questions, or that it was already being,
It just seems to me that there's, the person who's gonna benefit by getting the money should be the one
well,
that's
I
ensuring that all the steps are taken,
right,
not us.
I agree. And I think that's why Wildlands Trust got involved. I think that they were pursuing it that way. So, go ahead, Ian.
The landowner started this probably a couple of years ago, wanted to have that piece bought by the town, and he started, and he didn't get anywhere. I know the selectmen had said they weren't gonna pick up on the 61 auction because there's a covenant on it and nothing can be there but one house. So, and the view of the selectmen is, why would we do this? And so he kept pursuing it, the landowner, and that's how he got to Wildlands Trust, and they offered to help him because they looked at the big picture, and they hold a conservation restriction on Joe Morton's property, which is there, and the Viggers property. So there's two other big pieces, and this would, his 30 acres would be attached to it. That's how Wildlands Trust initially became involved. But then, if the town's not interested, they're not gonna spend the money to do the survey. They'll help them out because I think they think it's worthwhile, and they're agreeing or offering to hold a conservation restriction on it.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the, at this point, the worth of the project. I'm
Right.
just saying that it seems like we're doing a lot more work than we should be in pushing this along.
You're selling his house for him.
Well, I just want to make sure that no steps are being missed, because,
No,
like I
I
said, I
understand.
thought that we were
Right.
waiting on a step 2. And then we
Well,
haven't
like I
gotten
say,
one.
that was me talking to, I've worked with Wildlands Trust for 20 years, and I would hate to see them spend the money doing all this stuff if it hasn't been. I've said since the first day, and I said to Mark Resnick, you need to get the selectmen on board. And I also said to Wildlands Trust, you should get the selectmen on board.
So has this come before the selectmen at all?
No, not at a public meeting that I
So
know
that's
of.
what we need to do then.
So that's what I was
Right.
looking to potentially send a memo and just,
It should be,
That's why I was
should be
wondering whether
Wildland
they-
Trust really, rather than CPC coming there and trying to get it on. I agree with.
well, so he had sent me a bunch of questions and I did forward those on.
Mm.
Because I don't, like I said, I don't have the answers to those.
Kind of
But
just
if
went
they
flat
haven't
out,
put
like
it
the
on
whole
their
thing.
agenda.
Mm. So, I mean, I can send out a memo, request a meetings to kind of flesh it out and figure out, is it moving forward or not? Okay. All right, and we are after 7 o'clock, so I will open the 7 o'clock public hearing. I'll make a motion to open the
Do you have to
hearing.
read the notice or not? Does Kathy have- Does she have to read the notice, the public hearing notice or not?
She should.
Do you have it?
I don't have it.
You have it? Do you have it, Kathy? No?
It was in the newspaper. Did you put it in the newspaper?
So, Michelle, you would be sending a memo to the trust to see if they talk to the town or where they're going with this?
So I'm gonna send the memo to the select board and the Concom, because those are the two that would have to be involved in step 2.
Yeah, and did you also send it to the trust,
And
is
send them
that
master
to
legally.
see what they wanna do? Because they haven't,
Well, they had a lot of questions that I don't have answers to,
right,
you know?
okay, so you'll be sending a memo to the town.
Correct. Yes. What's that?
Do you mind if I add something?
Okay.
So, I don't know about recently, but my recollection from prior to Ari's guy's departure and then also Mark Resnick's departure was that Mr. Crisolini had reached out to the town and was told that he should submit a proposal in writing. And at least as of when Mark Resnick departed, I don't think that ever happened. So I don't know,
But
I
wasn't
could
that,
be wrong.
was that, I think that was in regards to the chapter property though. So this is.
That could be.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in this process, so like I don't.
No.
I'm a little embarrassed and
No,
sorry
I think,
myself.
I think you're right, but I think that was when he was looking.
just the chapter
to
land.
sell, yeah.
So
to the town.
anyway, that I don't know if that sort of like helps inform why the select board maybe hasn't taken it up, or I don't know. I just wanted to include that.
Thank you.
I have the ad.
You do?
Oh, good. I couldn't find
Well,
it.
I paid the bill.
I'm on.
That's why. So the ad went attached to the numbers to submit the bill, so. You want me to read it?
Go for it, thank you, Nancy.
Okay. Town of Lakeville Community Preservation Committee, 346 Bedford Street, Lakeville, Mass. The Lakeville Community Preservation Committee, CPC, pursuant to the Lakeville General Bylaws, Community Preservation Committee, Section 2, conduct a public informational hearing on Thursday, February 29th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Lakeville Police Station, 323 Bedford Street regarding the Lakeville CPC plan. The purpose of the hearing will be to provide information and receive public comment on the Lakeville CPC plan. The plan can be viewed at the planning department by appointment or on the town of, next page, Lakeville Community Preservation Committee's webpage.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have anyone from the town that would like to come and speak to what you want to see done with your CPA funds?
It's kind of us. It's kind of us, right? We're number 3. But it's not my specific project. Okay, well, there are people here from John Pond Park who either play, coach, et cetera, and, you know, we asked them to be here tonight. So I suppose this is your cue if you'd like to come up. They already came up?
No.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Don't all jump at once.
All right, and if you can just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Glenn Gussis, 9 Hazel Road. One of the board members for Free Lake Softball, along with others. We had attended this meeting previously. We understand that we'd obviously gone to town meeting and got approval. And we're just here to reiterate the fact and the importance of moving forward with the design and engineering that was part of that initial approval for not only water service for sanitation purposes, but also for drainage, parking lot modifications, all of which are, you know, public safety issues and concerns for not only our families, but other families coming in from other towns. In some cases where we can have hundreds of individuals at the park at a given time. So we just wanted to stress the importance of all the public safety issues that go along with that.
Okay. So, I mean, it is still approved. We're still working on getting a municipal agreement drafted so that the funds can be expended for the plans. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forward.
Sure.
anyone else?
I'm sorry. I guess I don't understand the question. Do you want any members from the town to come forward and tell you what they want
Yeah,
to see?
residents, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you like to speak to what you want to see?
I just wasn't sure. But I do have a question. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read your plan. Can you just give me a synopsis of what you are thinking you want done with the money?
So, I mean, it has to apply with, you know, what CPA funds can be used for, and we did, we did solicit input from parks and open space and historic, and, you know, we don't have anyone for community housing, but those are the categories, and, it has, you know, so each category has its own criteria, basically, that we're looking to use the funds for and to support and create and acquire, as long as it's within the parameters of CPA funding.
My other question refers back to something you were just discussing. You said you're waiting for a step 2 form to come in?
Yep.
Wasn't there a deadline?
So,
that?
no, so because it's, an an open space purchase, it can happen
Okay.
at any time.
Okay, so they don't have like
They-
certain deadlines, it can come whenever?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
What are you thinking of changing and adding to this? Seeing this, I thought this was something different than what we were talking, I read this when I put in my application and it seems very comprehensive. Are you thinking of changing anything? What's bringing this up? Or is this
So
like a
this is
yearly-
part of the charge of CPA, the
Oh, it's
CPC.
a yearly
So
thing?
every year we have to hold a public hearing, we have to solicit input, make sure that our plan is in line with what the residents want to see done with their funds.
Got it.
So that's what we're doing.
Can I
So,
speak as a resident?
yes, of course.
Sure.
Say your name and your address.
Okay, Brenda Donahue, 87 Crooked Lane. I think that we should focus more on not only maintaining what we have, but improving it in small but effective ways that can be applied in many areas. I'm hesitant to just kind of refurbish things that we've had. Like Paula and I got into it about her fence project, but we agreed on it because it's one way that the money can go. My application for a geodesic dome greenhouse, which I know I'm going to get to later, but it's something that can start at the school and the kids get into it and then it can go to other places in town. So the CPA to me is all about maintaining at least a semi-rural character. But if we don't put projects in that get people out into nature, that get people out, that get people caring about being rural, we're not going to maintain being rural. And then we also have people that are coming in regardless of whether or not we want it to, because the town has to increase its residency. So the CPA to me is the perfect way to maintain the part and the character of the town that we want to and adapt it to who we have to. So if we implement things using the CPA and the CPA funds that draw people that have a like mind, want to be in a town like ours, as opposed to people who are here just because they can afford that housing, it sets the whole town up for a better future. So it's just something that I think should be taken into mind when this money is being put places, because this is the only fund like this in town. We have free cash from the town, but we've seen how free cash gets spent. So this is something that is dedicated in a way to improving and maintaining what we have in town. And that's, if we're all about maintaining
Although
rural.
it can't be used for maintenance, though.
No. I mean, if we're all about for maintaining a rural character and creating things that promote that culture, then that's just,
One of the most important things
future.
is people coming forward with innovative,
yes, absolutely.
and so that is dependent on the population out there, so we would encourage them to do that.
I agree. One thing that I will know is that it's somewhat hard to propose projects that seem different when everything that has historically get preserved is not that. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like fighting against the tide, because you can propose something, but if too many people don't believe it's possible, then they're going to go with something else.
We've only had one, we're into our second round of.
Right,
so
this
it's
is
only
new.
one
This
year.
is new. But it's just in the future,
I think
keeping
it
it
takes
in
people a
mind.
while to begin to understand how the money could be appropriated.
Yeah, how it can be spent.
Right, because there are so many caveats to it, yes.
But in terms of the plan, I thought it was a great plan. It was very comprehensive. So you guys did a great job last year. It covered all the bases.
I will say that going through, like the MOU and the grant agreement, I am finding things where maybe we should tweak or add or whatever, but it's more along in the process of disbursement and implementation and all of that part of it. So, I do
Michelle,
think
do you
it's-
think that the people here might want to know that this 1% and how it's divided up so they understand the different,
Oh, the categories?
and the percentage to each, and so they know how much money is for each category
Sure,
and
so,
all that, you know,
so out of the total fund, as you heard us discussing a little while ago, we will present a budget to town meeting, but we're only budgeting for the amount of money that the town is going to collect. There is gonna be a state match on top of it, but we're not gonna, bank on that coming in because it does fluctuate year to year. It's anywhere from 11 to 52%. So out of the money that goes into the pot, we have 10% that goes to both open space and recreation, 10% that goes to historic preservation, and 10% that goes to community affordable housing. And so that leaves the rest of the pot can be spent on any of those categories. We did discuss the administrative portion that can be up to 5% for administrative purposes. So other than that, the fund will build if it's not spent, and anything that's not spent on administrative goes back into the pot as well.
So it never stays, so if, for instance, there were no historic preservation things, it would go back into the pot. It would not stay in historic preservation, build up.
Oh, but it does.
Oh, it does.
It does. So that 10%, even if you don't spend it 1 year, you'll still be building onto it.
Right.
Because it always has, that's why the housing portion, we haven't spent it, but that's gonna keep building because it can only be used towards that designated pot.
Is there a tax benefit for
If
the
you'd like to
people?
come up and,
Are you saying that 70% has to remain in the pot all the time?
no, nope, not that it has to. That's, so 10% to each category.
Yeah.
And then the 5%, up to 5% for administrative, and then the 75 remaining can be spent on any of those 3 categories, as long as it's within the parameters.
Spend 10% in each one of those categories per year?
Nope.
No,
So we've already spent
Minimum.
more than that.
Yeah.
So for example, one of the projects was looking for $30,000 and they had, their 10% was about 22,000. So that was taking some money out of the main pot as well as taking the full pot from that 10%.
10%, and if I may, Madam Chair, each year there's 10% that has to be spent or allocated. That 10% for housing has to be allocated for last year. We didn't spend it. Can't go anywhere. It has to stay there from last year. Now this year, the 10% will be added to it because we didn't do anything for housing. But recreation, we spent the 10%, so that's gone. But this year, there's another 10% there. If we spend it, we spend it. If we don't, it has to stay there. So each year, that 10% has to be designated in each of those categories. If you don't spend it, it stays there. It doesn't go away. But if you spend over the 10% on recreation, say you want to spend 20%, you can take it out of the big pot and add to the 10%.
So publish the numbers that you're talking about, put them on the CPC town's website. So, and because I'm looking at the coalition's website, I go to the data bank, go to Lakeville, it shows in there for 2023, town collected $222,655, $222,000 and some change, plus a match of 0 from the state, and it shows the number. So put those numbers up there, then as the next line, show the different buckets.
So, that's a great idea, John, honestly. And if we get a spreadsheet, if Nancy does keep working on this budget, and if we get a good spreadsheet, maybe that is something we can add to the page so that everyone can see what we have. But it does change. It's going to change,
Put it on
and
the
fluctuate.
page, it's always changing.
Right. Yeah.
But
Good
it
idea.
gives folks the context of how much money is there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're looking at 40 acres for the Crystalina property, I mean, who's a realtor here who knows how much you have to pay to buy 40 acres of open space, right? It's millions of dollars. And does the committee have that kind of money?
No.
And unfortunately, open space shares it with recreation, so that's gonna be tough.
Unless,
But not all properties are worth $1 million. You have a
Right.
property that's got a covenant on there and it says you can only have one house and there's already one house on it. So you can't do anything with that property if you were to buy it. So that right there, that would make it at a reasonable price. That if we wanted to buy it, that covenant makes it more reasonable if we were gonna buy it. Although, like I say, if it's got a covenant on it, nothing can go there anyway. So it depends on what property you're looking at. Yeah, property is expensive, but something with a
That one could
covenant.
be reasonable.
Right, should be real reasonable.
Michelle, was there an issue with the taxes for the seniors too, and a rebate from any of the CPA money?
An issue with it? What do you mean?
Well, was there, the gentleman that came?
Oh,
John,
Mr.
it's
Gregory.
right there.
Yeah, and actually, Paul, that is another, we do have that on the agenda.
No, I
Well,
was
well-
just wondering if you wanted to explain it to the group
Oh,
that are
okay.
here.
About
Because,
the
yeah,
ex-
because a lot of people do not understand.
The senior exemption
Thank you.
or senior
Yeah.
and,
And
Low-income
they're,
exemption?
they pay their taxes
Okay.
and then somehow they're able to get a rebate through us.
well, so it's not a rebate through us, but they would have to apply, for an exemption. But there is a low income and senior exemption available for the CPA fund, so, anyone can apply for that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you guys as a committee have an idea of how much of the pot you want to save? Like, are you thinking spend it all, save half of it for a future big land purchase? What is your idea there?
Speaking for open space, I'd hope that there'd be money left to, purchase open space. There's priority parcels in town. And if there's no money left, then how can we save land? So I would like to save some of it. I do think we'd have to do projects, but I'd like to save some.
So you guys haven't discussed like how much of the pot you want to save and keep building on for one of these big land purchases?
No, I mean, I think we probably all have, an idea in our own minds of how much we want to see saved or spent, because, I mean, I know personally how expensive land is, as Mr. Gregory just pointed out, and so, 200,000 a year is gonna take a while to build up if there is a significant portion of land that comes available.
So are you looking to allot just that 10% in each of those three categories? Or like, are
We
you
have-
open to dipping into the
So
big pot?
So, me personally, like, I had voted
Well,
against
collectively as
going,
a group,
but,
right?
but it's up to everybody to have their own, opinion. That's, up to everyone.
We haven't voted collectively as a group about saving or spending. We've just been looking at the projects that they came in, and actually last year, we only spent $65,000 on projects, or allocated, we haven't spent it yet, but we only allocated $65,000, and our match last year was $46,000. So,
Was that from the state?
yes.
Okay. So that would be good in those numbers. That would be helpful for everybody to see.
But it doesn't come in till the end. The 46,000 didn't get added onto last year's budget, it got added onto this year's budget, cause it comes after.
Gotcha, okay. Makes sense.
And does that match from the state get split the same way? 10% goes in each thing, or it just goes in the collective pot and then gets all split out?
Yes, it's after like I said, the 10% comes out of what the town puts in,
Not the state.
correct? Because that does fluctuate.
See,
If you,
it's just,
would you come up and state your name for the record?
Math-wise, there's always going to be 65% in there of what you collect each year.
Not
It
necessarily.
has to be.
Correct.
No.
That was my question. You said 10%, 10%, then you have 5% for administrative.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves you with 65, and you said the figure was 75. That's what I was
You
confused
can't empty
too.
the pot. You can't empty it.
Can I-
You have to have 65% at
Yeah.
all times.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
that's
it's not, no, we can empty it, we can actually,
Yeah, we can, 10% is the minimum. You could spend
more.
60% on one of those
Yeah, but
categories.
not if it's 10%. that you
10% is the
allocate.
minimum.
It's 10% minimum spend, not
We can
10%
spend
cap.
50 or 60%
It's
on
not-
one,
yeah.
I thought you
one
said 10% for
category.
each category.
So that's how it has to be allocated at town meeting, 10%, 10%, 10% for those three categories, open space and recreation are together. So that main pot, it doesn't mean that you can't touch it. It does, but it can go to any of those three
10%.
on top of the 10%.
Can you just,
Because-
can you
so-
just explain, you have 10%, 10%, 10%, and 5% for administrative,
Or up to
which leaves
5.
70%.
That's what I don't understand.
Louis, 65.
65, yeah,
Right.
65.
And you said 7, okay, that's why I was confused.
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.
That 65 can be used in any of those
I was
categories.
just,
Yes.
it added up to 105%.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sorry.
And when we budget, like we were talking about budgeting for next year, we budget for next year, we have to be careful. We can't budget for more than we anticipate we're taking in. So when we're doing the 25 budget, we have to underestimate what we think we're gonna take in. Because you can't vote for a budget at town meeting and then not collect enough money to cover it. So that we always underestimate it. So actually at the end of the year, we have already ended up with more than we anticipated, but like I say, you have to be careful because you can't, in your budget more than you're gonna take in, so it's an estimate.
I have a question. If we bought open space, a piece of property, would the town be able to use that for a fire station property? Can they take it from us?
No. No, so it has to have a restriction.
Oh, okay.
And you had said that the CPC doesn't pay for maintenance, so if you purchase a plot of land, who is gonna be responsible for maintaining that plot of land?
So it's supposed to be maintained as open space, or it has to demonstrate the ability to provide upkeep and maintenance for the future.
So it
That's
has to
one of the
take care of
categories. So if you,
itself?
there has to be another funding source.
Like
for
Wildlife Trust would come in.
somebody,
Okay,
you
so
know,
somebody, you have to partner with somebody
Yes.
else to do that.
correct. Or it's just
Okay.
not maintained land because it's open space and
So
it's
it's
just,
natural.
yes.
Why would the town buy a piece of property that you can't use?
Well, because a lot of
Thank
people
you.
want to see, the rural character maintained, and we have a lot of,
By anybody.
Well, it could
Well,
be
it
used.
could, because you can also.
you can do walking trails,
Yeah.
you can do hiking, you can do all
Right, but you
sorts
can
of,
also
But-
partner open space with
But with all due respect.
community housing.
That
Like you could
doesn't-
purchase the property and then do community housing on it.
Absolutely, but with all due respect, that does not apply to this property. This property is bog next to a highway in marshy wetlands. It's not even open. I don't mean it disrespectfully. It's not open space. It's a bog with wetlands and a house that's already on it with a covenant. Now, you had suggested that he was gonna separate the house off and put a tower up.
No,
so
there's
that-
no,
the
no,
tower
it's
there.
already existing.
The tower's already there, so
Yeah.
separate the house off. So now the covenant allows for a house to be built on that property. Why would the town purchase it when someone can come in, buy the land, build their tiny little house?
No, they can't
they
build a
can't.
house.
No,
There's
the
a
house is
covenant on
already
it.
there. The covenant's for the whole big piece and the house is already there.
So even if he separates it off, the covenant applies. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the question still arrives, why would the town purchase this land?
Open space.
Because it connects to
hasn't been-
Vigors.
But it's not
It
open
also
space,
hasn't-
It
it's
is,
a
it
bog.
It is.
No, it
It
connects.
connects with Vigors and then the trails, you'd make a loop, so you walk the property.
It would be a wildlife corridor as well,
Okay,
And there's private property that also has a.
Yeah.
right,
existing conservation restrictions around too.
interesting.
Did you have a question? You want to come up and state your name for the record?
Just, yes, Noel Willow, just a resident, but, just a resident. I remember back when we were sitting in this room and people were talking about the Dollar Tree, and it was like, oh, let's not let that happen again. And then the storage building, and then now we're gonna have an apartment complex, and it feels to me like Main Street is gonna be a goner. It's gonna just be gone. And I don't know, maybe there's no stopping that train, but I think you have to have some vision in your mind of what you want the town to look like in 10 years, because I look 10 years down the road and I could very easily see just one swath down 105 of nothing but buildings. And I mean buildings like the storage place there. And I feel that there's a great deal of value in purchasing land. And I don't know, call me crazy, but I don't know, I just feel that there's a big value in buying land, because it's very sad to walk down the street and say to your grandchildren, you know, there used to be a really nice swath of trees here, it was so pretty. And I think you have to think 10 years down the road at least. I mean, I think past the time when I'll be gone. And, it may not seem like a valuable investment at the time, but you have to look at it almost like a chess game where you protect something. You protect something. I don't know. It's my 2 cents.
Thank you,
Madam
Mom.
Chair, I'd just like to address whoever was talking about, why would you buy a piece of land that you can't use? My personal perspective is your water supply. There's something you can't live without, is your water. You know, there's a lot of things you can live without, but water's not one of them. And if you were to purchase a piece of land that would protect the water supply, then you might limit the use of it. That's just from my perspective.
That's also one of the things.
Hi.
There's an idea the committee might want to take up.
Mm-hmm.
Idea of Main Street. You got 13 Main Street with the 2 apartment buildings. You got 43 Main Street where Rhino's got that master plan. You got, and there's a bowling alley in there. And you look at the assessor's map, these properties are all kind of like touching.
Mm-hmm.
Lakeville owns a piece of property at the back of 13 Main Street. So the thought was, I put an email together to somebody, it might have been, but a walking trail through this neighborhood, this mega neighborhood along Main Street, or, you know, back off of Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
If these properties would provide an easement, so you're not necessarily buying the land to put the walkway on, but you create a walking path, you know, across, so that the residents of the apartment building can go for a walk. You know, maybe a nice asphalt paved or gravel trail, and you come out on what's the street behind?
Rhode Island Road.
Thank you. Well, no, not Rhode Island Road, but there's a cul-de-sac off of,
Rush Pond Road,
pardon me?
Rush Pond Road.
Yeah, I think that's it. So that's right immediately behind the bowling alley. Now, of course, there's somebody that owns the bowling alley who may or may not be open to the idea, but if this is something that this committee could think about or work on, I'll certainly send the details. I put a little map together. And would that be a project? I'll send it in as a possible project idea.
Well, we can't suggest projects. We have to just review them that are brought to us.
Okay, I'm suggesting it now, so I'll send it in for review.
All right. Well,
And maybe
if you want to
others
fill
could
out a step
add
one.
to it. Or
Can anybody fill out a step one? It doesn't have to be like an organization or a committee or a group. Can a resident fill out a step one?
They can. It is so we do have one that we're going to talk about later tonight. If it's a private owned property, it is a little bit more extensive. The work that we have to do and that they have to do in order to prove that it's going to, because it has to have certain restrictions once it's designated for CPA funding. But yes, they can.
So he could put together a plan and submit that to you?
Correct.
But doesn't open space purchase have to be in chapter protection?
I don't
mean,
think.
because I think Middleborough ran up with that same problem off of, in East Middleborough. There was property that was in chapter 61 protection. The family was working with Middleborough to purchase it, and then all of a sudden they decided they weren't gonna do that anymore, and they were auctioning it off. And once land is being auctioned or sold privately, CPA could not purchase it.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, I think it has to be chapter land to purchase.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question to ask.
It's in the process of coming out of, and there's been refusal.
Yeah,
by select
like the
boards.
right of first refusal, if they don't wanna buy it, CPA could buy it, but it has to be chapter land. It can't just be a piece of property that, like Crystallini is chapter land, correct?
It
Was, but he
Nancy.
took it out already.
Mm-hmm. But I think there is that 1 year waiting or grace period or
Right.
whatever it is.
But I'm pretty sure Middleborough ran into that problem. They were gonna purchase a big piece of property and,
Okay. I'm not sure.
I think that's why you
There's
get
a lot of
wetlands
caveats.
trust involved,
right, if something
so
like
that
that.
it gets,
Exactly,
you
Because
get them
yeah, you
involved.
definitely need to have
Yeah.
the conservation restriction on it.
right. So if something came up on Main Street for sale, CPA couldn't just say,
Right.
oh, we're gonna purchase it under open space.
So somebody would have to apply to us to purchase, we couldn't do it.
Right.
Right.
do we have anyone else that has a question, comment?
Just in reference to
Can you come up and state your name, please?
Diane Haskell. Just in reference to Main Street, wasn't that the purpose of zoning? When you did general use, that's a Middleborough term, but general use in those areas to confine major, I mean, if we start buying every 100-foot piece of property so that we can take a walk, that kind of defends the purpose of having a master plan with zoning.
Right, yeah, I mean,
We can't buy every house.
No, we can't. I mean, CPA can't do that. You can't purchase houses or property. It has to be in chapter 61
Well, then I'm
protection.
wondering why we're talking about buying property for walking trails.
I think he was just suggesting it as an
Oh,
idea, but
okay.
I don't know if it's possible,
Could buy,
honestly.
Historic property.
Yes, you could buy a historic property, correct.
I just think Lakeville doesn't need to be in the real estate business right now. We are in such debt in this country. Why are we spending more than we have or anticipating? Why can't we just live with what we have for now? I mean, I have a piece of property that is basically empty and they want they're assessing it for $457,000. How can one house lot be worth $457,000? Why?
Agreed.
Because we're spending more money than we have, and we have to get it through raising taxes.
Yeah, that's a question for the
And
assessors.
it doesn't matter what the rate is; it varies
Right.
with the value.
Right, and the more lands that we purchase.
The assessment will never go down, but the rate will be flexible. So people are kind of fooled and say, "Oh, the tax rate went from 14 to 10." But now what are you paying on? You're paying on a piece of property that's double the value because it's been assessed, you know.
Right.
But when the inflation goes down and the property values go down, what's gonna happen? You're gonna be still paying the same rate
They'll have to raise your rate then.
because we've spent the money. We've committed ourselves to the money.
And unfortunately, like it has nothing to do with, this meeting, but, the town budget can go up by 2.5%. And if it has to go for more, then it has to go for an override. And I think we may be looking at that if you
And
watch.
some of the things, I mean,
select
I'm
board
not
meetings.
familiar with the whole organization, but are we taking over, this group taking over some of the commitment that the town should be making?
No, so so CPA was
Improving
passed.
John Pond Park? Why isn't the town doing that?
So,
I love her.
No, but why aren't they?
It's a fantastic question.
But as long as you do it, it means there's extra money in the town's budget
So-
that they can spend on something.
so the CPA budget is separate from the town budget. And that's what this committee is charged with, dispersing the funds from the CPA budget.
Making a recommendation.
Correct.
But don't you think you should go to the town first?
So we
Be
do.
Refused?
So we
And
do. So we review the applications. We have a step one. If it goes through step one, they come with a step two application, review that. And if it passes a step two application, we'll recommend it for town meeting. And then everybody at town meeting will vote either in affirmative or negative, whether to spend the money on that purpose. But so when CPA passed, it designated 1% of your tax rate into this fund. So that's already been done. It went through town meeting, it went through the ballot vote as well to create the fund as well as this, the charge of this committee. So we're not, raising your taxes. This is a 1% that is consistent now. It's gonna fluctuate based on what that rate is, but it's money that is already, coming from your taxes. And
no,
that's
it's an
why
additional 1%.
it is,
Yeah.
correct.
So can I ask one question, please, through you, Madam Chair, is how have you, I haven't quite got from you of how you would like to see CPA money spent?
I don't think I voted for it.
You can still have a say in how you want it spent. That's okay.
I know, but how would, that's what this meeting is all about, from these people, and we want people to come up here and tell us how you want this money spent. This money is already gonna be in the pot, and we make recommendations to town meeting of when people put projects in, how would you like to see it spent? Would you like to see it to buy more things, or would you like to see it spent to fix things we already have that are broken down?
I don't think should be taking responsibility away from the town and the taxes they're accumulating right now.
But if the town doesn't have enough money to fix things,
If they don't,
yeah.
they just borrow it. That's what they do, they borrow,
Another pretty darn.
and the town approves it.
But we have this pot of money that we make recommendations how it should be spent, and I would like to hear from, people showed up for this meeting, so they need to tell us.
But what did you do before you had this 1% money?
We only had it for 1 year. I
No,
mean,
but
we're new, we're brand
No,
new.
what did the people of Lakeville do before the additional 1% was accumulated?
Well, I'll tell you, so, you know, this came about because people were saying, you know, why don't we have money to buy Chapter 61 land? So every time, so Chapter 61 land is something that's set aside, is protected. They had a reduced tax rate because it's open space land, you know, whether it's for recreation or agriculture
No, I understand that.
or
Yeah.
forestry.
Yeah.
And so when that land comes out of Chapter 61 protection, when they want to change the use or sell it, the town has the opportunity to say,
First offer.
yes, do we want to buy it? And so when the town says we have no money to buy it, CPA was an option. It was an option to bring in some money, set aside a fund, so that now when we have Chapter 61 property available to purchase, the town has an option. Do we want to use CPA funds towards this purchase? So that we don't
But why do we
end
have
up.
to continue buying property?
Well, so I'll tell you. So because if somebody's going to sell 60 acres, okay, or a big old farm, or cut down a bunch of trees and build houses, you know what happens? That's what 2.5 children in the schools, and we have what 16,000 per student costs around that per year. So you're a single family home is not paying 16,000 in tax dollars every year to cover the cost of the students in the schools. So by setting aside the land and not letting it be developed into housing, it is actually saving us money in the long run. So that is a benefit to keeping the open space and retaining it and not letting it become developed.
Are people aware of all the land that the town has bought?
I believe so. Yeah.
I think that would be good information to give people, because we have a lot of land. From Wilkie's Farm, people drive by these farms and they see corn.
Town
growing.
doesn't own.
No, that's
No.
not.
They have the developmental rights.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
nothing can be
that's
built there,
agricultural.
except one house.
And Betty's Neck, and there is a good amount of land at Betty's Neck.
Which you already bought.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Not me personally,
and how many
but
people
yes.
take walks there? That's what I'd like to know.
Oh my
A
goodness.
lot. How many people
Tons.
bring their dogs there? It's more like it.
But you can't be spending millions of dollars for walking. Maybe you can restrict it by zoning.
Oh, here we go.
Can I answer her question before?
All right,
it goes?
Dave.
Before the CPC was formed and we put money into it, our parks weren't maintained as well. They've been let slide for all these years because the town didn't have money, or the town had more important things to spend their money on, so that we didn't have to raise taxes. So now, after all these years, we're able to do John Pond Park and look into putting water in and what we have to do there to bring our parks back for them to be used.
Does anybody remember when they convinced the town's people were convinced to buy Ted Williams and including the tennis club? But one of the conditions was, we'll be using the tennis club for a town hall because we need one. We need a new town hall. And the people voted for that. They voted for the Ted Williams camp, including that.
You gotta stay to what we came here to talk about.
Okay.
We're getting off the path here, please. My name's David Fink, 12
Name?
North Precinct Street. She just explained one of the projects that got done last year. You did quite a bit. Maybe you could help out and explain some of the other projects the CPA money went to last year. We only had 1 year, right?
Right. Well, so the money, we're still working on getting these documents ready so that we
But
can
there's some
disperse the
that's
funds.
been allocated in.
So there was some that was allocated towards the townhouse roof replacement, but it looks like we may not have to touch that.
Yeah.
There
Right
was
now,
also-
The bid came in, we had money from the town and a grant from the Mass Historical Commission. And the CPA money was as a contingency fund in case we found something drastically wrong with the roof, because it's been so long since it was done. But the bid came in at like 45,000, so we believe that we would have enough contingency money in the first two elements, so we will never apply or submit bills at this point. I say never, but in case something drastic happens, chances are very slim that we will look at that money. So that money will just sit there.
And so that came under historic, so one of the three buckets, and then another
Cemetery.
project was the
Stable
cemetery
stone.
repairs.
That was from Cemetery Commission.
Yeah.
We do restoration in the cemetery.
So it was, I believe it was a historic cemetery as
Yes,
well.
the
Well,
oldest
we're
one.
hoping to put it on the National Historic Register. It's not on.
Okay, so it's not yet, but they're looking to
But
do
it's
some
on the
repairs.
state assets inventory, historical. It is.
Did someone need money for the park?
Yes, they've allocated $25,000 for us to do an engineering survey to fix all the drainage problems and the parking problems and the water problems if we get that chance at John Pond Park.
As well as the ADA stuff?
Yes, the ADA stuff will also be in there for John Pond Park.
Which isn't a choice,
No choice.
right?
It needs to be done. We have families in wheelchairs that can't use the bathrooms and snack bars, watch their kids play sports because they can't move around. So it really needs to be done. Thank you, Dave.
And that was brought to town meeting and the people voted on
And
it
the
at
people-
town meeting. None of this money can be spent by us. This is not like our money to spend. It's like it goes to town meeting. Nothing can be spent until the town votes. It's just our recommendation.
So you
And to
sort
make
out-
sure it stays within the parameters of what's allowable to use CPA funds for.
Sounds good. So you got a good plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll state mine. Melissa Turcott, 1 San Mark Way, as a resident. I would like to see, and I know a little biased, but I will state that I live right off of the Clear Pond, the golf course, Lakeville Country Club. So I was one of the reasons I joined the park commission was because he was wanted to put a big warehouse there. But before we go buying extra land, I would like to see us take care of all the land that we have. And I know we can't do maintenance, but we can do improvements, right? We can add the shed, we can add the accessibility, we can add all those things because none of our parks are ADA compliant. We put in the playground, which is totally ADA accessible and inclusive, but we don't have a walkway to get there. We will this spring, but the parking lot is not ADA accessible. Like there's so many things, little things that you don't even think of all around town that need to be taken care of because they're just left in a state of disrepair. And I would like to see the town like drive down the street and be proud that this is my town where I live. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I decided. Just out of curiosity, I haven't done the research, but where is the first step application? Is it on the website? or-
Yes.
Yes,
It is on.
Yep.
yes.
But the due date for that has passed, right?
So yeah, this round has passed.
Hi, Carrie Bogdan, 18 Johnson Drive. So from a resident perspective, I think this is great. I voted for CPA. The projects that were voted on last year, I fully supported all of them. Personally, I moved here. I work in Cambridge. My commute is hellacious, but I choose to do that commute because it's important to me to live in a nice rural community. The schools are great here. I have kids in the school system. And it's just super important to me that they can go off on their bikes and I'm not afraid of where are you going, who are you with. I like rural. I wake up at 3 a.m, hear the owls outside when I take the dog out. I hope that for, as long as I live in Lakeville, until I'm in an old home somewhere, which isn't in Lakeville,
Hopefully
that it
someday.
remains this way. I love it personally, and I know a lot of other families who have moved here for those characteristics. From the softball hat, again, super appreciative that we got the support for the project, and big picture, I hope those things happen for John Pond. I have a daughter and a son. My son has played for years and years at Ted Williams. It's a great park. It's a great complex. They have a lot more opportunities there. They have bathrooms they can use. We literally, not to be gross and, you know, sorry for the graphicness, but we have girls changing tampons in the woods. It's gross, it's unsanitary, and it's hard as a coach, right, it's unhealthy. It's hard as a coach to say, sorry, there's no bathroom, or sorry, the porta potty is overflowing. Like, is your parent here? Can they take you up the street to Dunkin' Donuts? So, big picture, I do hope that as we get more and more of these funds, that we can finish the completion of this project at John Pond, and most of our girls are gonna not see it. They're gonna have aged out of the league, but it's important to me. I would love to be here at 65 years old and drive by there and say, wow, we worked really hard and we made that a lot better. So, that's it. Thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so guess we can conclude our public hearing. Motion to close the hearing?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Yep, got it.
All right, thank you. Number 5, discuss and possible vote on grant agreement and memorandum of understanding documents for approved projects. So for the non-municipal grant agreement, we had been presented with a version from town council. I went on the coalition website. I found one that Wareham is using, and I went through and I actually compared them because they're actually quite similar. I wouldn't be surprised if Wareham started with the same or very similar draft. And I was able to match up and compare each item. So if everybody has their Community Preservation Act non-municipal entity grant agreement, and then compared to the one that was in our packet last time. Number 1, the award. This option actually spells out in reference which category the funds come from. I thought that was a little bit more, specific than the town council version that didn't specify the category. Number 2, grant application. This was basically on their page 2, which it talks about the step 2 application being incorporated into this grant agreement by reference, and it's in their paragraph that says, that references, it's in like the top section where you have to fill it in, but it's also the same. Number 3, term, is basically the same as their number 3, except it adds funds not utilized for the project purposes approved cannot be assigned to project costs beyond the scope of this grant and must be returned to the Community Preservation Trust Fund reserve. That I thought was a little bit more encompassing. I think, so Wareham has had CPA for 22 years, so I think they may have added over the years, like I said, like how we could add to our plan based off of what happens, what we see happening. So I thought this number 3 was a little bit better. Number 4 was similar to their number 2, budget and other sources of funding. And I actually thought their town council's version was actually a little bit more all-encompassing than this version. So my thought was take this one out, replace it with the one from town council. Number 5 is the same as number 13 from town council, just about. But then on town council's version, number 4, 5, and 6, disbursement inspection. Number 5, project scope of work, and number 6, project liaison. Those were all not in the Wareham version, and I thought that those would be good to incorporate into it because it didn't have those specific items. So number 6, deed restrictions, was similar to number 11 and 8 from town council. And they actually, so in town council's version, it says that the planning department will assist the grantee to the extent of its authority in securing preservation restrictions, accessibility waivers, historic resources, other approvals necessary. But then under the Wareham one, talks about the recipient agrees to imposition of such deed restrictions in a form acceptable to CPC. And for open space, and it specifies it has to be approved by the Mass Executive House of Energy and Environmental Affairs. For community housing projects, it has to be an affordable housing restriction approved by the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development. Of course, now that's changed. It's not DHCD anymore. Open space, so it specifies the type of restriction that has to be placed, which I think is a little bit more helpful to the applicant, so they know what they have to be compliant with. Number 7 was just very similar to town council's number 7. It did seem to be a little bit more specific because it says failure to meet the terms and requirements set forth in the CPC grant agreement may affect the recipient's eligibility for future projects. I thought that was very specific, instead of just saying, this could affect, the grantee acknowledges its responsibility to comply with all applicable laws pertaining to the procurement process. Instead of just being non-specific, this is specific. It says if you don't meet the terms, then it could affect your ability for future funds. So I thought that was a good item to include.
Absolutely.
Number 8 was similar to number 8. Permits and licenses. This one, it basically just leaves the liability on the recipient for the permits and licenses. Number 9, release of liability, was very similar to number 20, indemnification, no liability of town. And then also there was the last line that says shall survive termination of this agreement is also included in their number 17. Number 10 was similar to their number 10, Community Preservation Act awareness. Number 11, assignment, was similar to their number 23, no assignment. So this Wareham version is much more lengthy and specific about the requirements if they are to transfer an assignment of the funds. So number 12, default and termination, was similar to number 17, termination. It was similar, but was the difference is with specifics on how it happens. So it actually breaks it down in an A, B, C, D, and then how how the decision happens, you know, a vote with the different votes. I thought that was a little bit more comprehensive. Number 13, return of funds, was the same as number 18, return of funds. Number 14, notice, was similar to number 19, notice. But it did specify so that they would have to fill out the name and address, and the name and address of where they have to submit it is also included. Number 15, severability, was just about the same as number 21 from town council. Number 16, governing law, was similar but more extensive than number 22, governing law, which, as you can see, it's just a line, and this one is, this agreement, all proceedings and actions subject to matter herein shall be brought and maintained to the courts of a Commonwealth, or subject matter herein shall. So it's just more substantive, it seemed. Then number 17, entire agreement, was very similar to number 16, entire agreement. So I did think that there were some parts of the Wareham that I liked that were a little more comprehensive, but I did want to include the few items that were in town council's version. So I took them, I made a third copy. I figured I'll send that out to everybody. And then if you think that sounds good, we can forward that to town council to review and send back comments. So far, they've only looked at the municipal project memorandum of understanding. And they sent back comments, and they only edited one of the items. I think there were 6, but they only edited one. And I did send back the plan language and asked for them to send back, you know, clarification, because I don't know if what they're saying is we should change the plan, or if they have language that kind of meets our plan as it is, and the language of the agreement, the memorandum of understanding, sorry. So I'm still waiting for that to come back. I'm hoping that we can get a final draft, and hopefully next meeting approve that. So as soon as I have something back from them, I'll forward that to everybody. But if we could, I know that was really quick. I don't know if that all made sense to everybody. That a lot of it is the same, but anything that was lacking, I felt we could include so that it's as comprehensive as possible. And if you're in agreement, I'll send that third version that incorporates it all to be reviewed by town council. What do you think, John?
So do you need a motion to?
Yeah, I'd like one.
Adopt
or to send it out to town council's review.
To have the document with the changes you just outlined, reviewed by town council?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I'll second.
And are we all in favor?
I,
Have discussion?
oh, sure.
Okay.
Guess I don't understand why you did another whole document. You couldn't have added the changes on to the one that was already there, instead of like 16 is like 18 and 17 is like 15. You could beef up the one they already sent to make it like.
So
Town council's gonna have to do go back and cross-reference all the.
I can make those notations on it before I send it to them. Like I said, I was going through the CPA coalition website, and I wanted something that has been, because this is just, like you said, this is like something they just send out as a recommendation. So I wanted to see something that has been used by other towns and who are successful. So Wareham has had it for 22 years. So I assume that they have worked through certain bugs, I would hope, with this agreement, if it's been in place for that long. And I went through the Wareham and I really liked it. And then I kind of went back to the town council and I was like, okay, they are very similar. And that's where I found that they were similar. after the fact.
I wonder if Wareham has KP Law, and I wonder how many communities KP Law has done with this.
So, and that's what was surprising. So the sample that Christina had sent out to everybody from Middleborough, I thought KP Law was Middleborough's town council. So when I got a lot of edits back, I was very surprised because I thought they were the same.
Right.
So I thought it was going to be a quick and easy, you know, here we go. But unfortunately not the case.
You don't know how law firms work.
Apparently I don't. But so, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, we have number 6, review possible vote on step 1 applications received. So the first one is the historic town hall door replacement. And so we have the application. I did include in the back our evaluation criteria that we can go through and determine whether or not it does meet the criteria. Sue was able to send these off to the coalition, and we were able to get some feedback regarding the step 1s. So that is in the additional material sent out this afternoon.
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair, before this gets started?
Sure.
This is from Paul Nee, who's the facilities manager.
Yeah.
Did this go through you?
No, not really. He asked us if we might be minded if he applied, and we said we didn't know if he applied, but we weren't applying. Historical Commission did not apply.
So the facilities manager is applying, and did you look at it? Do you?
Oh, yeah, we know that the doors are in really bad shape, yeah. It's part of the whole plan for revitalization and
Okay.
restoration as much as possible. We don't believe they're the 1856 doors. They are doors that were changed, after the, Coconut Grove fire. Anybody remembers that? Not me personally, but, the history of that. The doors on the Coconut Grove opened in, not out. And what ended up was they had people who could not get out, and there was literally body stacks. And so the state law changed, and all buildings had to have doors that opened out so that they would not have that problem. So a state trooper stopped by supposedly when there was a meeting being held and told the Board of Selectmen that they needed to change the door. So the doors were reversed. But that was the last time that any major repair work was done in terms of changing. And as far as we know, we've always had, this was probably the second set of doors for the building. There's a whole lot of panel issues, and we have some problems with hinges and framing and stuff like that, so.
So it has your stamp of approval on it?
Yeah, we agreed that it was one of the things we wanted
And
done.
it keeps
but
it
he
within
just
its
went-
historic,
But we didn't
Good
act,
stuff?
and we voted to support him, but we
Okay.
did not generate the
okay,
idea.
okay.
So they can't be repaired or rehabbed?
No, there's
They're
too many,
pretty bad?
well,
Okay.
they're probably over 100 years old, and it's too many issues.
And it doesn't take away from the historic value?
No, as long as you're doing as much as possible.
Okay.
Can you tell the difference between a 100 and a 200-year-old door? From
Can I
a distance?
personally? No.
Most people can't, but I mean, it would be, that's why it's expensive. First of all, they're huge. And it's also because they're, restoration quality doors.
Okay. Thank you.
So, just following up on that, so the Historic Commission's all right on the design as,
Yeah, it's the same door, only it's a newer door. But it's
Made
made
with
the
same
same
material.
way. It's well, I don't know exactly. It wouldn't be old wood, old core wood,
Right.
because which is finer grain, but it would be similar. And Paul is fussy about stuff like that too, which we really appreciate. So he was not talking about putting in aluminum doors or anything like that.
Right, because it would have to stay within the historic value of the building.
Well, the building is the only building in town on the National Historic Register, so we're very careful about what alterations are made and to it. And he's sensitive to it too, so that's really nice.
Okay, because, so then the commission would like be overseeing that project, pretty much.
Colin, you will be, as facilities
Right.
manager, he will, because
But
he
the
oversees
commission
all
will
the
be-
buildings, yeah.
Okay.
One last comment.
Mm-hmm.
You need to teach them to say historic townhouse.
Historic townhouse. Yeah, he said hall.
I know.
Well, that's because it says town hall,
I
and that's
know.
part of the history of the
I know.
building.
But you teach everybody that.
It's historic townhouse, yes.
All right, so do we want to go through the, general evaluation criteria?
Sure.
So all the projects must meet the following minimum criteria. A, does the project have a feasible project plan that demonstrates the best approach and timeline for implementation? He does have a timeline, 6 to 8 weeks lead time for door delivery, installation and painting timeframe 2 to 3 days, so I think that's a yes. Does the project demonstrate the administrative and financial management capabilities of the applicant? It is a town project.
Can we ask where the rest of the money's coming from? Because the total estimate's 8,700 and he's asking for 6,950.
I think, didn't it say the town was paying that or not?
Town's gonna do installation and painting.
So he, yeah, so he's doing the labor, right? So
Oh,
that's.
so that's the difference, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as administrative and financial management, we do have the quote showing exactly how much it is. Along with the labor and miscellaneous. So I'd say yes to that one. What's at the back of the, application I stapled? Does the project demonstrate a means of support for maintenance and upkeep?
Within his budget.
Yes, it does. Does the project have support from other relevant town boards and committees? You said historic does support it, so that's a yes. I skipped one. Does the project show community support and positive impact to the community? I would say yes, because it is.
It's in use right now as, early voting.
All right,
Right.
yeah, and it is our one historic register.
Yes.
And it's being used a lot more now than I can remember it being used in the past.
Once we put the ramp in.
And does the project
And
show?
We also put in the, on-demand HVAC.
Oh, that's
It's warm
good.
and toasty this morning in there.
Oh, good. That's key. Does the project show support from the abutters? I think this is an NA because,
I think this is not applicable, only
Right.
because
Correct.
it's the church and the cemetery and the library.
right, so who's gonna complain? All right, can it demonstrate additional criteria? Does the project provide other sources of funding? Yes, because
Yes,
Yeah,
Paul
he's
has
doing
money
work.
in his budget too.
does the project protect land critical to our natural resources? That doesn't apply. Does the project support open space and recreational planning on a regional basis? That doesn't apply. Does the project fulfill more than one purpose of CPA, open space, or recreation, historic, or community housing? No. Has the applicant successfully implemented other projects of similar scale or otherwise demonstrated the ability and competency to implement this project? I'd say yes. He's been involved in other projects. Does the project ensure preservation of currently owned town assets?
Yeah.
Yes. Does the project involve acquisition of threatened resources? No. But that's definitely more specific to open space and recreation.
To land or something.
Right. Does the project have all permits and board reviews in place?
I would say yes, that he would.
And then the only other items would be at the bottom, criteria specific to historic preservation. Does the project protect, preserve, enhance, and or rehabilitate the historic integrity of a property or site? That's a yes. Does the project prevent the potential loss or destruction of a historic, cultural, architectural, or archaeological resource if action is not taken?
Not having doors is.
Yeah, probably.
Say yes.
Does the project protect, preserve, enhance, or rehabilitate the historical function of a property or site?
One of the big things is, one of the doors doesn't have a suitable lock either.
Oh,
So locks will be an additional thing that he will provide so that we'll have easy access and we don't have to worry about someone who is a nonprofit using the building and breaking a key in the lock.
Oh.
It doesn't work well. Well, it's because the hinges have dropped, so you have to, there's a whole.
Oh, you have to like lift
Ask
it.
Joanne up, she knows.
jeez.
how to do
Huh.
that stuff.
Does the project demonstrate public benefit? Yes, it does. All right, so I think this seems to check all the boxes. And we will let him know to move forward with a step 2. So I'm gonna put approved.
And also, one of the questions I think that came from the, Stuart was things about, this building is on the inventory of, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for historical and archaeological elements.
Yes.
And then also, it had to do that before it went on to become part of the, National Historic Register.
Right, I think this was just all like, you know, his checklist of does it do this, and then I did print out the Secretary of Interior Standards, also this qualifying historic projects for funding item, and then the Secretary of the Interior Standards for rehabilitation.
And
So these,
Mass Historical is very much interested in what we do with that building. And Christine, you had the meeting that we had with the architect for the roof. And so they are very much involved with what Mass Historical thinks is allowable, so we all are on the same page.
oh, good, okay,
And Paul is too.
excellent.
So do we need a motion?
So, yeah, let's, do I have a motion for
I make
approval?
a motion that we approve step 1 for the replacement of the historic town hall door.
Any second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this one is another historic. We have the cupola repairs to the Lakeville Historic Museum. I know you didn't submit this one either. Are you aware of this
Yes,
project?
I'm also a member of that, group. Yes, I was reading through some of the things. The building is it is not on the National Historic Register, but it is on the inventory of, archaeological and historical assets for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and has been for many, many, many years, probably since the 1970s. It was originally a church, and then when the two churches merged, Grove Chapel's congregation and precinct, they decided to build a new church and didn't have the funds, so they moved the precinct church, which is the current church of Lakeville United Church across the street over there. And they sold the old church, and that became a museum. And it was bought by one of Gladys Vigor's sons, who was the president of the Historical Society, and given to the society in her name. And she wrote the first history of Lakeville. So that's a little bit of history
Okay,
of why
yeah,
that building
we've
is.
seen that book, right?
Can I ask a question? So that's not owned by the town, it's owned
No,
by the
it's
Historic
private.
Society.
And I think
Which
this
is
might be
a-
the first thing that we've done that's private, so I'm not
Right.
sure.
So that's why if,
So that's, I assume it's a private nonprofit.
Yeah, it's non-profit, private, yes.
okay, so as you can see in Stuart's email, if it's not on the state register, the Historic Society will have to prepare a history of the
So
building.
it's on, what he calls the register is really that inventory of assets.
Okay, so it is.
So it is,
So it is
okay.
It
considered,
has
okay.
been since
All right.
1970, into the 1970s.
Oh, okay.
The
All right,
town
gotcha.
started, just before the bicentennial, when everybody started being interested in historical assets in their town.
Okay. Yes, so it is the first consideration for private non-town entity. So.
Yeah, he had recommended a preservation restriction to the town,
Right.
so like if they,
That's
the
something that we
society
hadn't talked
sold.
about. Well, we did the same thing, I believe, the for the townhouse, we did a, historical restriction.
Excuse me, so we will do a.
No, we did do one for the grant before we did the grant with Mass Historical,
So we committed to doing it.
committed to it.
Yes, but what will happen is the Mass Historical Commission will put the preservation restriction language together. But
Because of
that
their
happens-
involvement with the grant.
It is a contingency of the grant, but I don't believe we actually sign it until the end. I don't think we've signed it yet, but it is a contingency of the grant, and we
So
are committed
that
to
was for
doing
the
it.
historic townhouse.
Mhm.
For the grant that we applied for, we found out that we needed to do that.
Okay.
And also for some other grants, that's one of those, sometimes it's a requirement. for-
So it's almost, so I don't wanna say always, but it is often a contingency for the Mass Historic Commission specifically.
Right. So, as far as I know, there is no historic restriction on this building at this time.
Okay.
So if that's something that we're gonna require,
Yeah.
then we probably need to add that as part of the historical
Right.
application form where we say,
Mhm.
does this have, or is there
Yes.
pending, or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, yeah, cause I mean, Stuart had recommended doing that because say the historical society.
This is gonna be a major learning curve for us, because
I
it'll be
know,
the first
right,
private piece,
exactly.
and it will also have to do with a lot of things that we typically wouldn't deal with on open space. There's no historical,
Right.
housing and stuff like that. So there's some quirky things that are germane to this type of an application because of historic preservation.
Right, cause he recommended that say that the society sold the building.
Right, and that's why
Like,
you want a
within
historic
10 years,
Yes.
that they would have to pay the money back.
back, right.
Right,
So you
And I
said
have to
step
say
two.
something about master plan.
Yeah.
In the master plan, one of the things that the historical commission is gonna be looking at is there's about 5 things, some of which we've already done or are in the process of doing. But the last one is what's happening with historical societies in small towns is their population of membership is aging. They're not attracting younger members. And there is the idea and the possibility that we are going to die out.
Oh, jeez.
Literally, the population will die out. It's true, it's not, I'm not being crude about it, but it's true that we eventually will not have anybody to replace us. So what has happened in many communities as part of their master plan, the historical commission and the town have merged the society into the town, becomes like a town sub-department. And that is, but you have to have the members of the society willing and the town willing, and there's a whole legal agreement and everything. So it has worked in some places it hasn't worked. People are always concerned that if the town was short on money, they'd sell off the collection. Not that our collection's worth millions, but if we had a Rembrandt or something like that, townspeople might want us to do that. So, that is something that we have been talking about, trying to look long range at this private organization and how it would meld with the, and most of the people who are members have also been historical commission members over the years, so we do have an overlap.
Right.
So there is that possibility that that's going to come into play. I don't really ever see them selling the building. If there was a restriction on it, then they would have less ability to sell and stuff like that. So this is all stuff that's sort of undercurrent, but we're not sure exactly when and if they'll vote, if the town will want to do it. So.
No kidding.
but it's there, it's
Okay.
a topic of conversation.
Okay, good to know. So, I mean, so you had said this is something we could add to step 2. Should we add this to step 1 for historic
If
only?
you, I think if you see this as, if the committee sees this as being a thing that could be done and it meets a lot of the criteria, then I think that we need to think about,
Okay.
we as a group need to think about how do we add in information that protects the money we, or the town gives, if they give it, to the society and, or any other group that was, be a private group.
Right.
So this is something new.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
thank goodness it wasn't the first year, right?
So they don't have any other funding sources then?
Well,
Really?
they have a CD and, they have like maybe $14,000 in their checking account. But they are looking at other grant possibilities, but the next grant cycle we don't think is until December. For a grant that's local that we might be able to tap into that we've never applied for. Or they have never applied for, so there are other things. And they have been fundraising, but they don't have a lot of money,
Right. Right.
set aside, maybe a few $1,000. So it's deferred maintenance in many ways, but it's a major project, in terms of restoration too.
So, do we want to go through the checklist for this one as well?
I think we need to.
Okay. It's at the back. Let's see, application. All right, general evaluation criteria. Does the project have a feasible project plan that demonstrates the best approach and timeline for implementation? I
Well,
don't
they've
know.
had a building, conservation reconstruction company that deals basically with, historic buildings. And they did accept the bid, as they had other bids that came in too, there were wide range of money depending on what they were talking about doing. But this company has a good track record and has done historic restorations before.
Did they say, or do you have a timeline though?
Well, it would, basically the timeline as soon as possible.
If
because
they
it's
get the
roof.
money, basically.
Yeah, and they would wanna start as soon as possible if they were awarded the money.
Does the project demonstrate the administrative and financial management capabilities of the applicant?
Yes, because the building is maintained.
Okay. Does the project demonstrate a means of support for maintenance and upkeep?
I think in terms of programming and things that happen at the museum, yes.
Okay. Does the project show community support and a positive impact to the community? I'd say anything preserving historic artifacts is within that realm.
The butters have been, they have a very good relationship with the butters around them. Are you on F or are you on E?
D.
E?
I just did D, but we can jump to F and go back to E. So yes, they do have support from abutters.
Yeah.
Does the project have support from other relevant town boards and committees? And you're on both of them. So
So Historical Commission has a relationship with the group, basically because we're on both groups, but we also do things like if we receive, the commission receives things on behalf of the town. If there are things that we need to have displayed, then we either loan or give them to the museum for display. So and then they turn around and loan us stuff for town anniversaries and things like that, or displays, or for the library exhibits that the commission does on material stuff. So
it's a good working
reciprocal relationship, yes.
Good. All right.
And we've had Eagle Scout projects too and things like that. So there is that other relationship with other nonprofits.
Good. Does the project provide other sources of funding from outside sources? So it looks like they're asking for 20
Yeah,
and they're
their
putting in
plans are, yes.
1,000.
But we don't actually have them yet.
Okay, so this is hopefully a maybe.
We think yes.
Does the project protect land critical to our natural resources? This one doesn't really apply.
That's an
Does the project support open space? That's an NA. Does the project fulfill more than one purpose of the CPA, open space, recreation, historic, community housing? That's a no. Has the applicant successfully implemented other projects of similar scale or otherwise demonstrated the ability and competency to implement this project?
Yeah, they've done re-roofings and they've fundraised and put 2 carriage houses on the property over 2 different time periods. And then they've restored a small building which was once used as a popcorn stand down near where Savis's is, or Lakeville.
Country store.
What is it?
Market.
Whatever.
Country store.
Country store. There used to be a popcorn stand there, and that is on the property, so they've restored that. So the answer is yes. And
Okay.
that they have had projects where they have raised money and put in slab foundations and put in 2 historical carriage sheds.
Great, great. Does the project ensure preservation of currently owned town assets? So it's not town owned, so that's
Not
a
at
no.
this time.
Well, actually, that is a yes, if there's town assets on loan.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it
Obviously-
is, town, if you think town as a, not government, but as a whole umbrella thing,
Okay.
yes.
Well, you were saying that there were historic,
Yeah, they have
Commission.
things of ours that we have loaned
well,
them.
that's town.
And then, that's town, but then they also have things that people have given them that represent the town. There's a huge agricultural exhibit in one of the barns about all different kinds of tools and wagons, and we have a children's hearse. The Lakeville, first Lakeville, I know, it's white, that's how you know it's a child. But we also have the first brand-new fire truck that the modern Lakeville Fire Department purchased.
Oh, wow.
So that's there.
Huh.
So, I mean, there's it's very interesting. You should all come on a Saturday in the summer.
Only in the summer.
Does the project involve acquisition of threatened resources? That's an NA. Does the
Well,
project
the
have,
building itself would be a threat.
oh, yeah? You think threatened
Roof,
resource?
anything to do with your roof and a cupola.
Okay, I was thinking like natural resources, but I guess, yeah, any sort of resource. Does the project have all permits and board reviews in place?
It would have, yes.
It will, okay. And at the bottom, criteria specific to historic. Does the project protect, preserve, enhance, and/or rehabilitate the historic integrity of a property or site? That's a yes. Does the project prevent the potential loss or destruction of a historic, cultural, agricultural, or archaeological resource if action is not taken? It's a yes. Does the project protect, preserve, enhance, and/or rehabilitate the historical function of a property or site? Yes. And does the project demonstrate public benefit? Yes. And it is open to the
If you
public.
like history, yes.
Okay. Now, do they charge an entrance fee?
Right.
It's free to the public, okay?
They have a big yard sale once a year. It's a big fundraiser.
Okay.
June 23rd, I think, this year.
All right. So, it does seem like we have some other items to make sure we can check off for, step 2, as far as, what the coalition has, given us. He did say something about grant agreement, so I like that we have something in the works for that. But so, other than that, it seems to check all the boxes. Everybody in agreement that this should move on to step 2?
So, make a motion that, cupola repairs to the Lakeville Historical Museum for $20,000. Be approved
Second.
as eligible.
Who seconded it?
I do.
Okay,
Barbara.
thank you, Barbara.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Can I just make a point to go back to the grant agreement that
Yeah.
you were talking about? Because a good point was brought up, that it should probably have a provision for special conditions much like order of conditions, you have a standard order of conditions.
Yeah.
But there may be specific conditions for a particular project. For example, this project
Right.
may require, as it develops, some special conditions that would just be an add-on, like an addendum A or something to the agreement.
So I wonder if I can look for some other grant agreements from specific historic projects.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we can develop that, but I just think that the agreement itself should keep in mind that that may be necessary from
Right.
project to project, that there would be
Add-ons.
an addendum A or additional requirements.
Okay.
I was just thinking much like an order of conditions.
Yep.
So if the roof is damaged in this process, that would be the special.
Yeah, example, that would be their responsibility. I noticed the roof was done in 2007.
The main roof is fine, it's just the cupola area, which is.
Is it the cupola roof or the cupola itself that's?
It's the cupola, it's been repaired twice, but, there was some question whether or not it was done correctly the last time, or if it just was not done enough was done to it. So it has a leaking issue, and they're worried about losing the plaster ceiling and everything.
Jeez.
Which is what happens when you have problems with your roof, so there's some leaking. Nothing major damage has been done inside yet, that's why they'd like to take care of it as soon as possible. And it's the funding.
Okay. All right, well, that one will get a step 2, application. The next one is Clear Pond Park fence. Melissa, are you gonna present that?
Paula, this is her project, so we're
Okay.
just here to support and to answer questions.
Okay. I was gonna give you the information, but I'll talk on it. What would you like to know? That I didn't already explain.
Well, I think Stuart actually had some good questions here, so.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Stuart said is, as far as a police detail, that is considered supplanting and cannot use CPA funds. It would have to come from the town, so that 10,000 that was added to the 20 would have to come off.
Mm-hmm.
So that,
Oh, so that makes sense, like how Paul Nee would install the door, we'd have to use town
right,
funds
right.
for the.
You can't supplant
Okay.
funds to pay a town employee.
Okay,
So a police detail is considered town employee, so that can't be done.
So that doesn't get paid under this funding.
Correct.
Okay,
That would have to be either the town would have to pay if you needed a police detail.
okay. So in reference to the Clear Pond Park fence, along Route 79, Rhode Island Road, if anybody has traveled that route, there was a fence there, which parts of it is still there, but needless to say, it's either broken or damaged in some way and rusted out. The problem is that Clear Pond, as a natural resource, is exposed to Route 79. And because there is no protection, so to speak, to the natural resource, unfortunately, everybody has been throwing their garbage in there, which goes down to your pond. We have wildlife. We do have a trail around there. And now we have a litter of papers and cans and et cetera. So the fence needs to be restored. We need a fence. We need to restore what was there in terms of a fence. And for no other reason, the liability to the town, because people come in, they they slip in that way, walk the trail. We don't know they're there. They're coming around the trail and into the beach area. And without some kind of fence and without, of course, a nice sign that says, do not trespass, we're opening ourselves up to a lot of problems. Plus the fact that the natural resource itself is being contaminated. And it's been discussed for a long time, but it's a project that shouldn't take a lot of time to be fixed. And we're just in dire need of putting in a new fence.
So did you have a chance to look at these questions from Stuart? About, so.
Under rehabilitation, is that what his question is? The park would appear to be a valid project under rehabilitation?
No, well, I'm just going down further.
Why does the funds?
So he's asking.
Why does it need to be replaced?
I know, I thought actually, it's in the first paragraph, is, if it's on general municipal land or in the road right of way. Do we know, is it in the road right of way?
No.
It's not?
No.
Okay, so the 10 feet back isn't still the road right of way?
No, the fence would be 10 feet back from that, guardrail.
Okay.
So it's on parkland?
Yeah,
It is, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask
So-
a question about the police detail?
Mhm.
I didn't see that on here anywhere.
No, it wasn't on there.
So it is, where did that $10,000?
They discussed that at their meeting. It was 20,000 for the fence and then another 10,000 for a police detail.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Why
yeah,
it's
we
being
were
stopped?
thinking that, yeah,
Why would you need a police detail
because it was,
when the installation?
well, there's two reasons. The question was it on the state, was it because it's state road, would we need the state police to do the detail? Or is it a town road with the town police doing the detail? And we discovered that it was a town detail police.
So you need a town detail if you put a fence in? Is that what you're saying?
There's a question. It's not, possibly not, but
Okay.
would somebody require it for protection, for safety? I'm not sure, but we have to figure that we might need one.
Paula did her due diligence and she brought in 3 different fence companies, and one fence company requested that if they did it, they needed a police detail. So then it would be up to the police chief to say whether we actually needed the police details when we have the exact plans or not.
I mean, so I they assumed that their equipment would be parked on the
Off
edge
the
of
road.
79 and be doing the project
Yeah.
from 79 as opposed to accessing it through the park.
Oh yeah, you can't access through the park. It's on a sleep. The 79 is the only access
Yeah.
available to them.
So I assume the fence would be on the edge of town where the town property meets the state or the road
Oh, it has
layout.
to- you have to have a
Yeah.
10-foot.
And it would be on the town property side
Yes.
of the layout.
Yeah.
And is this at the area where it kind of slopes down a bit?
Yeah.
So even though,
It covers everything.
bluff
When you drive down, you can see the water. That's where the fence goes. It covers everything in front of the water, and then it slopes back. So it's not just like a straight line so that people just walk around it. It goes back into the woods for future expansion. So
Right, but I mean that.
Does it die into anything? Is it just like, it's just a standing, like, does this,
What
what do these do?
Okay,
Is there
That
another
is the-
fence?
that's the
not
pond.
currently.
Not currently, so it's just a free.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not really connecting to anything else. So I mean, anyone can just go down the road a little bit and still get in. Cause I live right around
I
there
know,
and I
hopefully,
can walk in
hopefully
anytime
not.
I want.
The fence is going to be on one end going
You're
into the
reason we need the
woods.
fence.
But there used to be signs all around the park that used to say private property, do not, those are all gone.
Yeah. We
Well,
don't
it's the
keep
same way
signs
at-
long
at
around
Ted
here.
Williams
They
Camp, we
get
put up
taken down
signs.
and thrown in the dumpster, and we have to pick them out of the dumpsters.
I mean, they were on the trees everywhere, cause I had them going all along my
Yeah.
property line.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people, every time we put up signs, and you'll see here at Ted Williams Camp, when we put up signs and try to keep people off the playing fields, off the grass, they tear them down and throw them in the dumpster or in the trash.
I mean, my question is,
Yeah.
if you're doing this fence to keep trash out, aren't there cheaper alternatives than a chain link fence that I think's just gonna look ugly?
No, I don't think it's going to look ugly, but I think it's going to be hopefully preventing people from crossing from that 79 down that hill, because there's trails, there's paths that they've been
Right, but I
using.
mean, they can access that further on down. To me, it's a fence that goes nowhere. It's really not serving, to me, much of a purpose.
Well, this is the first step that keeps the trash coming out of the pond. So in the future, we would like to connect it all around, but we didn't feel that coming to you with a $150,000 fence project was a good idea at this point in time.
So I do agree, I personally, when I drive that section, so there's the transfer station on one side and a beautiful view on the other side. I would hate to see another chain link fence blocking that view, honestly.
It's only 6 feet and it's chain link. I mean, you can still see
But
the
so,
view.
so I also drive South
Yeah.
Pickens, where there's the highway overpass and it is black chain link. And so now there's no brush growing into it. It's just a freestanding over the highway fence. That black chain link fence has paint peeling. So when I just picture it being something that is probably going to need maintenance, upkeep, replacement fairly frequently if it's getting grown into, brush, etc., like whatever it is growing up it. So I see it as being kind of a retraction from the view.
Well, it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to see the water, then you're probably right. In 10, 20 years when it's all covered with vines, if that is in fact what happens, then you're not going to be able to see in. If your goal is to protect your natural resources and keep your trash out, then you need the fence. If your goal is to keep people out, then you need a fence.
Right. So I guess if it's trash, like why not involve the litter lifters? You know, like that
what?
could be some so there's a group in town that actually goes and picks up trash. So I mean,
wish they were doing it right along.
yeah,
We wouldn't be involved.
ask them to do it in that area. You know, because I just know I don't like looking at the transfer station side because it's got that chain link fence. I like looking at the nice view when I drive down that road, and I would hate to see it. You know,
I would hate to see it too, but it has to happen because we have no other way of protecting the natural resource, keeping liability out of the town, and protecting our wetland and our wildlife.
So
it's a part that we have to start with, and it has to happen.
so the other part though, you know, like Stuart said here, are there other high priority recreational projects that would be higher priority than this fence? Because we just heard somebody who was very much, you know, in support of John Pond Park. What if there's more funding that could be used towards that instead? You know, is this really a priority?
Well, we're looking at cost effectiveness. Anything you want to do at John Pond Park is going to take tens of thousands of dollars. So I asked like how much you wanted to spend, and you guys didn't, how much you wanted to save. You didn't have a idea. So we didn't know. I know asking for the $25,000 in last cycle seemed to be a big issue. So we didn't want to go that large this time. So are there other things? Yeah, absolutely. We could put a new playground at Clear Pond. There's so many other things, but they're not low ticket items. They're big ticket items.
So if you have 10% and it grows every year, that, you know, if it's not spent, it'll grow. So instead of spending it on a fence that maybe you don't care about, you know, so much, would it be better to let that money grow?
Towards something bigger.
Possibly, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be there next year. Right? Because the parks aren't the only thing that 10% is
so
there for.
This is it. This is, well, aside from, you know, the land, which you know,
Open space.
open space, that could come in. I was gonna say that, you know, there's no other projects right now, but we know that that can come in at any time. But, I mean, I would like to see the, you know, the 10% set aside for parks and then the bigger bucket for open, that's just my personal. I would like to see the bigger bucket grow for open space, but I'd also like to see parks be able to utilize it as well. But-
Because it doesn't really I mean, to me, you want a bigger project that's gonna benefit more residents. What is a fence gonna do? What's it gonna benefit?
It's respectfully gonna do a lot more than a piece of wetland that no one can walk on. I mean,
Right.
this is a multi-tier project that has to happen over at least 5 years to complete the fence. And every single year, you guys pull in about $200,000, if not more. So it's not like this money is gonna be doing anything. This is an important project to someone who has been on parks, that it has to start somewhere. And if this is the problem place, then that's where it needs to start. And I understand what you're saying about blocking a view, but it's more important to keep trash out and keep delinquents out than it is to have a nice place to look when you're driving. Because you're driving. You're not driving to look at Clear Pond.
Right, but how are you gonna access the trails though there if you're
By
fencing it all
going in the
in?
front door at Clear Pond.
But it's not open year round.
So
The
you
trails
don't
aren't
access
open
the
year
trails,
round.
that's the whole point. The trails aren't even clear in the way
Oh, I
that
know.
most people could walk through them. So the trails shouldn't be accessible outside of Clear Pond unless we have an established thing. But we can't establish it year round because there are so many dangers. That playground is pointy and rusty and broken. The basketball court is broken, the trails are not clear. But to Paula's point with this fence is that what's the point of investing a whole bunch of money to fix what's inside of it if people are gonna sneak in because there's nothing guarding the outside?
And you have to consider the vandalism and the money we have to pay to keep fixing what's vandalized. And if this starts here, and maybe next year we can extend the fence and do more. But for the biggest part of the area that's being accessed by people from the outside that shouldn't be going in there, this covers it. It's a beginning.
I have a question. It says replacement fence. Isn't there already a fence there that's decrepit, right?
Yeah, it's
So
already.
It's already there, so you're not like adding a fence, you're replacing a fence.
And I have a question too. If you're standing on Rhode Island Road and you have that grassy area,
Yeah.
and then you can see the pond, is that the high point and then it slopes down
Yeah.
to the pond?
Yes.
So is there a possibility for people who want wonderful views, is it possible to put the fence on the slope, or is that just not something that would work?
Yeah, you could,
Then people would
but there's
just
a
get
big
right over it,
problem
too.
with
Installation
If they
and
wanna
stuff
get in,
like
they're
that?
gonna get in.
Yeah,
Right.
they'll
Going-
go
That's-
around
You
it.
answered my question.
Yeah.
I just wondered if there was room, like on the inside of the trees or something.
Yeah.
where you could
It
put
would
the-
just be harder for them to install, and then you have the whole.
Yeah, as it is, they'll have to use, what are those, cement things?
Couldn't go closer to the
Pilings?
pond?
Pilings, so that the fence is even, because in some places along, it dips, and they have to make it even, and then they're gonna have to add some kind of a wire fencing under that, where places are this far from the ground. So all that has to be, but that's the idea, you gotta protect it.
Yeah,
So,
so
do
it
we
just
wanna-
depends what your priority is. If it's taking care of our natural resources and keeping the trash out of the water and protecting the water, then you need the fence. If you don't care about that, then we don't need the fence.
Can
Can
I
the
ask a
fence go?
question?
Oh,
Why is the gate there if you're trying to keep people out?
Because if your EMTs or police come, if people get in, however they get in, and there's any kind of an incident, whether it be fire or a rescue, they're not gonna go down through the woods, they're gonna have to come through a gate. And so you wanna leave a 4-foot gate that will be locked for your local, first responders.
Yeah,
to
it's
get
not a
through.
gate for the public. It's a locked gate for our first responders.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, isn't there also access from Clear Pond Road too, to get in around the fence?
On Clear Pond, not that I know of. We had a broken fence, area that people were coming through. and for years, and, out of the goodness of, one of our fence companies in Lakeville, they donated, I don't know, 10 feet of fence to fix it, during COVID, when we were begging for money. So that was repaired. And then, there was a truck or a car or something that hit the fence, and that was repaired. So
But there is access
we've
on
done,
Valley Road, I mean, all over.
It's a chain link fence. Anybody who really wants to get in is just, I've seen them climb the tennis court fences.
Yeah,
They're-
right.
Fence isn't gonna keep them out if they really wanna get in.
How high is the proposed fence?
6 feet.
6 feet.
Now, do we want to go through the general evaluation criteria and just, see how it fits through the criteria as well? We have. these. So does the project have a feasible project plan that demonstrates the best approach and timeline for implementation?
Yes.
So this is stage part one of a number of years of additional adding to the fence, right?
Mhm.
I think
Yes.
So that would be a yes.
Does the project demonstrate the administrative and financial management capabilities of the applicant? I'd say that's yes. Does the project demonstrate a means of support for maintenance and upkeep? Is there a maintenance plan? No?
No, the DPW cuts along the edge, but they have the big machinery, so they're not gonna be able to, if a vine grows through it, no, the vine's gonna grow through it.
Okay.
And it's galvanized fence, so it's not gonna need to be painted, and it's not black.
Oh, I thought it said black.
Well, no,
That was an option.
that was an
Oh,
option,
okay.
but, no,
So it's just gonna be the silver metal? Okay.
I believe galvanized and 6 feet
What's the
tall.
existing fence that's?
I don't know, it's rusted out.
I don't even see a fence
Is it
down
chain
there.
link?
It was
It's
roll
not
fencing.
chain links, it was one of
It's
those
wire.
big giant,
Wire roll fencing
like,
with
to keep the cows
big
in.
posts.
Oh, like sheep fencing or
Yeah.
goat fencing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was done like 40 years ago.
I think, Scott Holmes actually, when he was an attendant there, put that up with the attendants, they did all that.
So maybe not quite 40 years ago.
Does the project show community support and positive impact to the community?
Yes,
So you do have support, yes?
yes.
Okay. Does the project have support from other relevant town boards and committees? Is there any other support from?
I don't know if
How
we
do
need
you
a parks
feel
and
about
I
Rec.
don't think that we need
How
it.
do you feel about it as?
I was gonna say the DPW's on board.
Do you have?
Oh,
DPW?
DPW, yeah.
Does this need a notice of intent?
Does the project show support from the abutters?
Hold on, I just want to answer John's question. Notice of intent, how far back from the water? Maybe an RDA? I don't know how far it is from the water.
I wouldn't measure from the water.
It's way up the hill.
Right, well, and it's upland of, so, I mean, just to cover themselves, they could do an RDA if it, but I don't think anything beyond that, like not a notice of intent on installation.
What's the idea?
No,
Request for determination, would this be affecting, do you need a full filing because you're gonna damage the wetland or whatever? It sounds like it's uphill,
Yeah, yeah.
and
it's
if it's
the top of
over
the hill.
100 feet, then you're all set.
Is that,
I don't think that's 100 feet, is it?
so we're not sure
Oh,
on
yeah.
that one?
It would be a minor filing,
Maybe.
It's more than 100 feet down.
then you file.
I don't think so.
If this area is in.
I mean, if this probably isn't scale, but it makes it look like it's 20 feet away.
Yeah, it's, I
Yeah.
don't think it's 100.
I don't think it's 20 feet, but I don't know that it's 100 feet.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think it's.
40 or 50. Why don't you make a note, Paula, and we'll go check it
Yeah,
out.
we'll go measure it.
In some places, it's more than 100 feet.
Right.
But in some places,
Right.
It
It definitely
varies,
is
but
not.
it's a long way down.
Does the project show support from the abutters?
it has no butters.
Yeah.
That fence isn't abutting me.
Okay. We didn't see
No
a house over there, so I.
No, I'm on the other side,
NA?
Valley Road.
Does the project provide other sources of funding from outside sources?
No.
No. Does the project protect land critical to our natural resources, the acquisition of critical
Yes.
parcels? So, yes.
Excuse me,
Yes.
doesn't that, don't you require, when you ask about funding, don't you require admission fees?
Oh, to the Clear Pond?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't fund the fence.
Who does it fund?
The admission to Clear Pond doesn't even pay for the lifeguard staff.
No, but who does it fund? Well, I don't think the amount matters. Is it funded by some other source?
The fence, no.
No,
Clear-
park is.
Yes, so the town budget does contribute to the lifeguards, right?
The town budget gives us $17,000 a year to keep other towns out of the beach.
You don't receive enough from the town, but the town does contribute to the maintenance of the.
No. The parks
Sure it
isn't,
does.
the parks is an enterprise fund,
Yeah.
so we make all of our money, and there are points where the town interacts with our budget, but it's primarily, it's only us.
You don't
So
receive money from the town?
For Clear Pond, they do.
for Clear Pond, we receive 17,500 for keeping other towns out of Clear Pond. For making Clear Pond Lakeville only, we receive money, but we don't receive money just to receive
It's a
money.
free enterprise system,
Right,
like we don't.
correct.
Correct. Does the project support open space and recreational planning on a regional basis?
Yes.
Regional, yeah? Okay.
Well, we have been discussing it.
Local.
Well, no, if it's
Just
Lakeville only.
Yeah,
It's
she's
local.
Well, that's what we've been discussing at the parks, and this is not official, so it's not to be taken like set in stone, but we've been discussing going to the select board about opening it up. But before we can open it up to other towns in order to make more money, it needs to be improved, and this is part of those improvements.
And if the select board decides not to contribute that 17.5 to keep it Lakeville only,
Right.
it's going to have to open up to,
Right, other
surrounding
towns like it
towns.
did.
And we were having a lot of problems with outside towns when it was open to outside towns, and part of that was showing up really early, sneaking in. There were issues with that, so this is part of that process.
For me, that's like not a clear cut yes or no, because of the regional is not,
Just local.
yeah.
and well, again, it depends. If you're saving it as a natural resource to protect the water supply, then it is a regional.
Yeah, it affects.
Okay, all right. I buy that one. Does the project fulfill more than one purpose of the CPA, open space, recreation, historic, community housing? No.
Just open space and recreation.
Has applicant successfully implemented other projects of similar scale or otherwise demonstrated the ability and competency to implement this project?
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
Unfortunately, we put up fences all the time.
Does the project ensure preservation of currently owned town assets?
Yes.
Yes. Does the project involve acquisition of threatened resources?
It's not acquisition.
I was gonna say,
No, that's not
it's
Oh,
not
not
acquisition.
acquisition,
That's a
just
non-acquisition.
protection, so,
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's a no.
Does the project have all permits and board reviews in place?
It will.
It will.
Could be a yes.
The next page, so which one, is this coming under open space or recreation?
Recreation. It could come under both, but
So,
well,
down to
actually, it
recreation,
doesn't. If it-
does the
if
pro-
it's used for recreation, right?
does the project
Yeah.
provide or expand opportunities for both active and passive recreation?
Yes.
I don't know if it
No, I
does
don't think
that.
so.
Say no.
Well, if you think passive is viewing,
Right, so it's, no.
Yeah.
And walking the trails, is that considered passive?
Well, it's actually preventing people from
Right,
walking the
so
trails.
that's
Paula.
not, but does,
Right.
does the project support multiple recreational uses?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, well, we have events there
We do.
and plus the summer program, so that's more than,
But without the fence, I mean, if the, no fence goes, it's not gonna really support, I mean, it's not really preventing or
no.
anything. So I would say no for that one. Does the project enable the usage of recreational space for all ages and abilities?
Yeah.
I don't think it applies.
Yeah, it
Well,
doesn't
it's
really
more- it's
apply.
more of a
Again,
protection.
whether it's there or not, it's the same.
Yeah, it's still gonna, Does the project maximize the use of town-owned land? I'd say either NA or no. Does the project improve existing ball fields, courts, playgrounds, and canoe/kayak access? I'd say no.
But it does, protect.
If it protects
And
the
all of
water.
those ones, it's protecting what's there already, because when it's vandalized, all those opportunities are taken away.
Yeah.
So yes. If the project is for land acquisition, does it provide for new or expanded recreational use? So that's an NA. So these recreation, criteria, this is what, bring back to parks, discuss. Do you want to tweak this? Is this what you guys are looking to expand, because this is when we look at the plan, this came right from the plan.
Did you, vote for this? At your
At the
meeting?
meeting,
You voted
yes.
that this was a priority at your meeting?
We
Yes.
voted that this was the project that we wanted to bring to you, yes.
The bigger
Um,
project is,
I have a question, like,
Not
we've
something
gone
we're
through all of these criterias for each of the projects. Is there a basis? Like, I don't recall you counting up how many yeses and how many nos. Like, it's okay to go through and check
So
the
I
boxes,
think
but
it was
there's the
very
minimum
clear with the other
requirements or
two.
non.
So it was very clear, like, the majority was yes.
Okay,
For this one, it is closer. It is more of like, on the fence of some of them, yes, no.
But we didn't
Maybe.
do the yes and no last year, right?
We did not,
So
no.
this is,
We-
we had
we
planned on
should've.
doing
Yeah,
it,
we-
we didn't do it.
We voted back in May, but those minutes were lost and we had to re-vote on it and.
So this is the first year we're actually going through the checklist thing.
okay,
Yes.
so there's no, like, you have to have 15 yeses in order to
No,
even consider
I think
the
it's more of
project.
just for us to consider, does this check all the boxes or not?
Or enough of the box.
Enough
Or
of
not.
them,
Right.
yes.
Right, but that's a very subjective, enough of
is.
the boxes.
It is. That's
You,
what-
you need a quantitative number.
I guess I was a little confused because I actually thought that the checklist was more for step 2. That you would ask all these questions, whereas step 1 is just, is it eligible? Not,
Well, I don't think, why would we go,
I think that's what we changed.
why would we wait till step 2 to go through this? Cause if somebody's gonna go through the headache of putting everything together for step 2, I think they would wanna know upfront.
Well, I was a little surprised that you had all the permits there. Are you all taken care of with this? Because I also thought that was step
Right.
2.
right,
Like when Paula came to me and I'm like, no, we don't need all that information for step 1. Step 1 is just to see if we're continuing. Why would we put all the effort in if they're gonna be like, yeah, we're not doing that?
Well, so then that's a critique. So when we relook at the plan, maybe it shouldn't be on this checklist for step 1, but, specific, like I said, this was taken right out of
First
the
time,
plan.
yeah, I get it.
So,
right. I just thought the eligibility, because actually,
At step 2 last year?
I don't believe so.
I remember you talking
No.
about this criteria.
Yeah, because we missed it last.
But I
That's
thought
in
that
fact.
we,
Right.
on some of the plans, you would.
You didn't do it last year, so.
right, but step 1 is just, is it eligible? And actually, I can't see how it wouldn't be eligible because it's a fence on parkland, just like some of the other things. Like this, is it eligible page in here? Anyway, I really did think that checklist was for what, to do these things, if we're gonna this is more important, if we're gonna recommend the money, all these questions.
Yeah, on step 2, yeah.
But in that same vein,
But
after
it
we've
was
gone through
okay
all
that
this,
we
if you're
went
like,
through it
we
anyway.
don't want a fence, we're not putting the fence up, just tell us. Like,
Well, that's for this committee to do. Do
Right.
you
No,
think
I mean,
that
the other
it should
thing
move
that-
forward to step 2?
If you look at this,
Right,
and you look at preserve protection of personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction, we have yes going all the way across, so anything that's going to preserve or protect something is considered acceptable.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at when I submitted this and felt that it fit the criteria. but I
so
may
the
be
only
wrong.
question we're really answering is this project eligible for CPA funding?
Are we ready to take a vote?
Yeah, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we vote on whether this project is eligible to move forward to step 2. With the recommendation. Well, I recommend that it is, yes.
Yes. Second.
All in favor? Oh,
Just to be clear,
Discussion.
Yeah.
this is $20,000 project,
Mm-hmm,
even though it says 30 on it.
30.
Yes.
yeah,
is what
so
it
that
is.
has to be revised.
Okay, the
Yeah.
30 was.
Okay, so it is going, you are changing this down to 20.
Yeah.
Well, they have to.
It doesn't put the police detail, but.
Well, the form doesn't say.
Right.
Well, right, because we didn't know, like, I was never shared the information that the CPC does not cover our police details.
So the vote
Well, it's
for
called
approval
supplanting,
on a
which is in the plan, but I didn't know that till today
Correct.
myself.
So the vote for approval is on a $20,000 fence
Correct.
project.
No, what we're approving is the fact they can go to step 2.
Right.
Mhm.
And step 2 is when we approve the funding part.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. You will be receiving a step 2 application.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next one, FLRSD Greenhouse Program. So, Brenna.
Hi, I'm very excited about this project. So I saw this story about a man who, it was snowing out, and he was growing oranges in a domed greenhouse because by placing it slightly under the ground, he was able to balance out the temperature. So even in blizzards, this man was growing tropical fruit. So I was looking into these domes, and they're not terribly expensive. And the diameter, the size, it all depends on the amount that it is. So this building, let's say this building is 20 feet across. So the dome greenhouse would be this, but in a circle. It would be this big. And essentially what it is the kids, I spoke with Alan, the superintendent, and Terry Fleming, the director of student services, I believe. And they both thought it was a great idea. In front of you, you have 3 images. One is the potential locations. I marked where the ball fields are, and the fly ball zones would make placing the dome there inappropriate simply because if a ball breaks it, that's ongoing maintenance or an issue. The 2 yellow spaces, one is between George R. Austin and between George R. Austin and Apponequet. That is where they traditionally hold like the Thanksgiving bonfire. And I know that they mentioned a new playground at George R. Austin, so that location is tentative. The other location that I was looking at for this is that grass, that patch of grass in front of the fenced off area near Apponequet. There is a tree on one side and there is a telephone pole on the other, measured by that blue line. But the green, yellow, and red demonstrate the diameter of the dome spaces.
I
So,
apologize, this is the new color.
I know, that's why I'm like,
okay.
Sorry.
that's why I'm like, I'm trying to follow you. I'm assuming maybe it's these little.
Yes,
that
so
one,
that's
yeah.
one, and then the other one is
Right?
right there.
Okay.
Yes. Those are the potential
Okay.
locations. So on the other page where it shows the 3 different, where is it? I'm sorry, the one that shows the grass with the price amounts. So you've got 33-foot growing spaces, 31,000, 43-foot dome spaces, 17,000, and 59-foot dome spaces, 30,000. I tried to use Google Earth to recreate how large those domes would be on the land that is given. So those lines are actually green, blue, yellow, and red. The blue is the really long one. The green one, which is the shortest one, is the 33 feet. The yellow one is 43, and the red, I'm saying colors, I know you can't see colors, I'm sorry.
I'm going to my email.
Okay. And the red line is 59 feet. But essentially it would be a greenhouse. And the kids who are in life skills class, the kids who want to sign up for maybe a gardening course, whatever. There was a gentleman who came to one of the school meetings, and Jen Blum told me he grows the best tomatoes. He was there for something entirely different. But I think it's a great way for intergenerational connection in town as well, because there are a lot of seniors in town who like gardening. There are a lot of retired people who have a lot of gardening knowledge. So I don't know how that would work, but it opens up a lot of connections between like the Council on Aging or the Senior Center, working with the school, or even, you know, volunteering to teach a gardening club or teach a course in gardening for students who are interested at the school. In terms of what it is, I don't have a ton of experience, but it seems like a very straightforward project where you purchase the dome, they deliver it, it gets set up, and we'd have to work on specifics. I think they set it up, but and then from there you're just purchasing the materials, so the shovels, the dirt, the whatever instrument you want to garden in, whether it's raised beds or whatnot. In terms of ongoing maintenance, it would mostly be dirt, shovels, and seeds.
And is there funding available for that?
So I actually was confused about that part on the application. I put 45 for the total, and I didn't consider that that was outside fundings. I was requesting 45 as a total in the application, but I only anticipated using about 35,000, if not less, because we're not going for an enormous dome, and as you can see, and then there's actual visual representations of the size difference of the domes. But the one that's 43 feet, that's enormous. That is $17,000. So $17,000 for the dome itself. That leaves $8,000 for supplies, and we're still not approaching $35,000. So because it's only stage one and nothing is hammered down in terms of sizes, where it's going, any of that, I just kind of padded it a little bit with a very high shrinkage anticipation. Yeah, questions?
It's such a great idea. I love it. But the worst part is Stuart said it's not eligible. It doesn't qualify because it's an indoor structure, and CPA does not pay for buildings.
What do you mean it's an indoor structure?
Because you're building something that they're going inside to work in. It's essentially a greenhouse, and that doesn't qualify, which really.
Why wouldn't a greenhouse fall under community gardens? How do you have a community garden without a greenhouse?
He said from what he saw in the application, that is a structure.
So is it under, what category does it fall under?
It falls under recreation and
Recreation, but right here it says that it's not, can't be, let's see, for a stadium, gymnasium, or other similar structure. And he said a greenhouse is a similar structure, and it doesn't qualify. I mean,
I would request to look into that more, because again, community gardens implies the ability to have a greenhouse. And the rules say that it is recreational use, active or passive recreational use, including but not limited to the use of land for community gardens, trails, blah, blah, blah.
right,
So-
but I think when they say community garden, it's just like a garden plot, not including a greenhouse, because he said the
But it
DOR.
doesn't include a tool shed. It doesn't include a compost bin. Those are structures.
But you're not going inside of them.
You go inside a tool shed.
Right, but you couldn't do a tool shed either. Like, I know what you're gonna say, what about John Pond Park, right? No?
I'm gonna ask who Stuart is.
Oh, I'm sorry, from the community,
I think
the
you better
coalition,
tell
from the Community Preservation Coalition. He has been doing this for years. He oversees all of the projects and everything CPA, he knows. So we sent all of those projects to him to review. And he said that the greenhouse, it's a great idea, but CPA funds do not qualify for it. Because
So
it's,
he's like the county CPA
He's an
person?
advisor, right?
Not just county, like,
state.
the coalition is what helped pass CPA originally.
But he
On the
didn't he
state
provide
level.
anything in
So
writing?
he did.
Yes.
I thought Paula just passed.
Yeah, I just gave you that.
He quoted from the, the law, chapter 44B, section 2. Yeah.
But Stuart's a consultant
Middleborough
as a
has a
coalition
greenhouse?
guy,
I think my
right?
daughter said that Middleborough High has a greenhouse. Is that true? Do you know that?
Yeah,
They
it's a
do,
small
but-
one on the side of the building there.
Oh.
Right, but CPA funds didn't
Didn't pay for it.
pay for it.
That was part when they built the school.
Right, exactly.
Now, what about, because this is on a regional school
Well, that's the other thing, because it's a
Freetown-
regional school, Freetown does not have CPA, so they would not be contributing to that.
But if I read it correctly, the lease agreement for the high school, because I got that in my budget for school committee last week, or the week before, it said that the town is in control of the property, that Lakeville is in control of everything that goes on there as a structure.
Right, but it's still a regional school district,
So Freetown students wouldn't be allowed to go in?
The Freetown kids can go in.
well, they can go in it, but Freetown wouldn't be contributing to it, is what I'm saying. But, let me find it.
So is there an appeals process to have somebody
No,
else look
no,
at it?
this
So
is
Stuart's
DOI.
the end.
No, it's Department of Revenue, guidelines that governs CPA, and that's part of their rules, that it can't be an indoor structure.
Yeah, it's specific to outdoor recreational
He
use.
said, a greenhouse is not eligible for CPA funding. Recreational activities in CPA are part of the definition of open space, and that means that only outdoor recreational facilities qualify.
Did you get that?
That's
Barbara?
An email. I think
Can I
she
see?
just sent it out late this afternoon.
Right.
No, I have it. I have it. It doesn't make sense. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't make sense because it's not a stadium. It's not a gymnasium.
Right.
It's a dome that's constructed out of triangles.
What's it covered with?
I want to talk to Stuart because
The other question is.
That's fine, you can.
You
no,
can.
I want to because
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. The entire point of this is to preserve the communities, and you're not preserving the community if you're not engaging in projects like this, because the kids are going to grow up with no interest in it. They have no interest in farming. They have no interest in gardening. You said you're dying out. You're dying out because no one cares. No one cares because there's nothing to make us care.
The question about, is this, if the geodesic dome is going to be a continuous structure, or can it be moved, or?
It can be moved. It would
Because when you
require.
talk about stadiums and gymnasiums, they're built.
Yeah.
You don't move them.
Permanent structure.
Right.
Right, that's what I was trying to say, permanent structure as opposed to, does it make a difference because it's not a permanent structure? That might be a question you'd wanna ask about.
And
whether
the
it's
other
permanent.
question I have is, the stone, what is it covered with? Is it something that you can take a canvas off and it's open to the air?
So it depends on how you want to do it. There's different levels of building depending on the structural integrity. There's 2V, 4V, 6V, and 8V. And the V is the amount of supports that you have. So you can do a double pane of glass. You can do a single pane of glass. You can do like a tough plastic that goes over the top. It just depends on which. It's really very customizable.
Is it removable?
I don't want to say, I mean, it is removable, but I don't want to
The
say it's
cover.
removable by the average everyday person. It
Right,
might require
But I'm
something.
saying if this is something that was removable, then you don't always have an enclosed structure. So it could be used out in the environment.
Well, my hope was that we would go with glass, because then when you're in the glass, you can actually see out, and you won't have to pay for lights because the sun will always be heating the plants. You wouldn't have to deal with any of the real issues. I mean, you could go out there whether it's cold, it would have, no, I was hoping for glass.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering that if it was exposed to the elements,
If that
did
would
it
be
make a
worth it.
difference in whether this was a permanent structure, a temporary structure?
So, I mean, if,
Then
that
it
doesn't-
didn't, it doesn't qualify as a building in the sense.
so
of
let me read this
shed or
out loud,
something
just
like
so that everybody understands. So he says, open space shall include, but not limited to, land to protect existing and future well fields, aquifers, and recharge areas, watershed land, agricultural land, grasslands, fields, forest land, fresh and saltwater marshes and other wetland, ocean, river, stream, lake and pond frontage, beaches, dunes, and other coastal lands, land to protect scenic vistas, land for wildlife or nature preserve, and land for recreational use. Recreational use. Active or passive recreational use, including but not limited to the use of land for community gardens, trails, and non-commercial youth and adult sports, and the use of land as a park, playground, or athletic field. Recreational use shall not include horse or dog racing and the use of land for a stadium, gymnasium, or similar structure. So I think that's why he's saying that it falls under a structure for recreational
Right,
use.
because if you read the next, the bolded right underneath what you just read.
CPA may not be used to construct any structure where activities are taking place inside. The main guidance document on CPA from the Department of Revenue says the following. Recreational use for CP purposes is defined in General Law Chapter 44B, Section 2, as active or passive recreational use, including but not limited to the use of land for community gardens, trails, and non-commercial youth and adult sports, and the use of land as a park, playground, or athletic field. Recreational use shall not include horse or dog racing or the use of land for a stadium, gymnasium, or similar structure. The CPA definition limits recreational use to an outdoor recreational pursuit. So
And
that, I
my
think,
only
is,
response-
Has a garden now, right?
Well, my only response would be is that this is not active recreation, this is passive recreation. And when you look at that gymnasium, stadiums, or any similar structure, it also has artificial turf. That implies that we're referring to active recreation, we're referring to running around, we're referring to doing activities. Gardening is not a high-intensive activity.
well, it does say
Gardening-
active or passive, including community gardens.
Right, but that's.
So I
what's
guess that
permitted.
is, I mean, I see the problem, because yes, it's a garden, and it says yes for community gardens. So, I mean, my thought is, let Brendan reach out to
Yeah,
Stuart,
right.
talk to the
I would agree.
coalition. I know, step one is already closed, and step two opens, but I'd be willing to, let her reach out, see if there's any further information he can give you or advice that you can share with the committee. And then,
We can, put it on hold until she has an answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's already submitted it within the time.
right, and I know, it's gonna take a while for the step two though, and that, I don't want it.
One thing that the coalition says, and it wasn't on that, and I didn't print those off, I didn't even really see them until the last minute, college told me they were on there. Is that coalition always puts on the bottom that that's their advice, and then he's not a lawyer. So there's always a little phrase on the bottom that says consult an attorney.
That's,
But that's,
that brings up a question I was gonna ask. Do we know through the coalition, is there any review process by the Department of Revenue, which would be an official pronouncement? I mean, or do they just throw this stuff out there
So
and
when
walk
we,
away from it?
when we report at the end of the year, we
right, the
review it.
DOR reads it.
And I'm pretty sure, I asked Stu if she remembered, but I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100%, I'd have to double check, if the project doesn't fit the criteria and you spent CPA funds, I think it jeopardizes your match.
And the DOR can come back to whoever it was and say that didn't qualify, you shouldn't have gotten the money, you have to pay it back.
So,
So we do have to be
But, I
careful
mean,
on what we
is there any way
spend.
to proactively get an opinion from them ahead of time? That's what I'm.
Well, I think that's what her hope was, to get, sent out
So
these.
maybe that's a question you
Yes.
bring up with,
Right.
what's the guy's name again?
Stuart.
Stuart.
I want to say Scott, but Stuart, yeah.
And it does help, like, if you just go to their website, you can actually type in the project and see if it's allowable too,
But I'd also check with the Department of Revenue as well.
by looking to see, have other towns done a greenhouse?
I mean, I looked, I didn't see anything, all the projects that have already been approved.
So that's
Greenhouse
a
is
key
not.
right there, like, if there is another greenhouse that's been done, then yes, it must be able to.
What is the procedure for getting a legal opinion? Is that something we're allowed to do, or is that?
So the
'cause
problem
that's
is,
spending money.
so we
Right.
don't have our own legal counsel. We could use administrative funds to try to use it for legal counsel. We have to go through the town.
Yeah.
well,
you
what's the
know.
difference between the greenhouse and her dome? I mean, if the greenhouse is acceptable, is it for gardening and,
I think that would be the
do
question.
you know?
Greenhouse is still an indoor structure. It's a structure. A structure is a structure, no matter
Right,
whether
but-
it's a dome or a greenhouse or whatever, it's a structure.
But was that acceptable, like, by,
No,
no? It was-
no
this is
structures are
So
allowed.
how about
This
we,
is here.
if everybody's in agreement, we can take a vote. How about we give her some extra time, reach out to the coalition, see if there's any additional advice. If necessary, we can call a meeting, maybe do it over Zoom.
Similar.
And
Maybe
Yeah.
if you think
Then
there's a possibility.
review whether to approve or not the step one, and then, because we're running out of time to get anything on town meeting at this point. If, you know, if it delays too much. So, I mean, I'm willing to do that if,
Well, there has to be a step two, right? Step two before town hall.
before town
Yeah.
meeting.
Can you approve part one so that rather than have everybody come back here and the rest of the project hinge on that?
So we could do an approval contingent on.
And if I can't do it, I can't do it. But if I can do it, then we won't have to meet, talk about it again, and go back out. I can
Okay.
just continue on. Is that acceptable? Because if it fails part two, it fails part two. There's nothing lost, nothing gained.
Right. True. Yeah.
But you're still gonna talk to Stuart.
Absolutely, I'm gonna talk to it. That doesn't make sense. How do you have a community garden without a greenhouse?
Right.
Because even if we do pass one, we can't pass two. We have to
Right.
be confident that it's
Yeah.
Right.
appropriate.
Okay, so does somebody want to make the motion to, do you want to go through the full, I don't know if we should go through the next step at this point or just wait
I think
until.
we're, right, you're at the very beginning where you question whether or not it's allowable.
Correct.
So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
So there's a question, we can't say
Right.
yes
Right.
or no.
Right.
We
'cause
can't, no.
Okay,
We're in
so
a gray area, so I think in,
do we have a motion to,
Motion to approve step one of the greenhouse program.
Contingent on it
Contingent.
being an
Oh.
eligible program.
Right.
There you go.
okay, motion and,
I second it.
all right, second. Oh, there's Barbara too.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Can
you.
I make a suggestion, Brenna?
Yes.
The state is very interested in agricultural land.
Yes, they are.
Living next to a state farm, there's a lot of activity over there now. There's also a lot of grant money available for these. They don't call them greenhouses, they call them high tops.
High tops.
That's what they're called. Yeah, there's one next door to me. There's one like Elliott's Farm, those are high tops. Mass Department of Agricultural Resource might be a good resource for you to check out to see if there's any money available for this too. Because I know that like I said, they're very interested.
Yeah, I think it was Pierce. Is it Pierce Farm? There was some farm in Middleborough. They purchased to acquire the land, and I think they received a $2 million grant because it was.
Oh, is that Peconi?
Peconi, thank you, because it was dealing with food.
Yep.
Food insecurity.
Yeah.
But yeah, you might be able to get more money and
Right.
worth
We want
looking
to start
into.
small.
But I mean, it's worth looking into.
Thank you.
Or I wonder if
Rent
like
some land
Elliott's
across the
would
street.
be able to help her write a grant. Or,
Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, we would like to close our meeting.
oh, sure, go ahead.
Brenna, you're on.
Oh, for what?
Close our meeting.
Oh, I make a motion to close the meeting.
I second the motion to close our park committee meeting. So at 9:33, we'll close our park commission meeting. And thank you all for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
a learning curve for us.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
So.
Nothing's cut or dry at all.
This is new, and maybe this hasn't come up before because Stuart says no and nobody's questioned, you know, so we'll see.
I looked online just for the heck of it, and I only got as far as like, there's so many projects. If you look at the coalition online, it tells you all the projects that have been approved. I only made it as far as the Cushnet, but they did approve a pollinator garden, which I thought was interesting.
All right, so the last thing that we have, yep, we have one more thing under old business. I just real quick, CPA exemption outreach update.
Here, pass this.
Nancy.
I take one and pass it around.
Yep.
I, put this in the newsletter at the COA. Everything's there. I took a lesson from,
Oh, there's another one.
the assessor's office. So I have a cheat sheet. I'm gonna be available on Monday, March 4th and Friday, March 8th at the COA from 10 to 12 noon to help people fill out their, applications. And, if they're unable to make the dates, I said I would make private appointments with people to help them out if they let me know.
Great, thank you, Nancy. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, next meeting date, March 21st. Everybody put that on the
What
calendar.
day of the week is it?
Thursday.
I think it's another Thursday, yep. And then the following one will be the April 4th. So hopefully we'll have a budget for town meeting at next meeting. in those grant agreement and MOA, or MOU. And with
Okay.
that concludes our
What time?
business.
Well, one
Oh,
more thing, the March fourth, I never signed up for any of those. I didn't sign up for March fourth.
Okay,
So
that-
you'll have to sign up for the 21st and the 4th,
You mean April?
April 4th.
Yes.
We had decided on that too, but I had
So
not-
I'll do
I
that.
didn't know if you did it or not.
Nope, I figured deal with the, March and then the April, so.
Okay.
I'll let everybody know if there's any issues with this and where it'll be held if not.
Okay.
Do you want 6:30 or
I said
7?
it was emotional.
I guess I can check and see.
I don't care what time, does everyone care what time, 6:37, which works?
6:30?
6:30?
We're gonna go as long as we can tonight, 6:30.
I hope hopefully it won't. It shouldn't. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned at